What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the Esports Listmaker Series presented by Benzinga. I'll be your host, Nate. I'm hanging out with my man, Mr. Big Biceps, Michael Murray, looking nice in the fresh suit. I like it.
How we doing, man? Good to be here. Looking good as well. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, should be a fun, man. We've got plenty of stuff to talk about, which we'll get to here in a second. How you feeling though? I mean, this Listmaker series has been great. We cover a lot of different companies in a lot of different industries, and of course, today's focus is going to be esports.
It is, yeah. I'm actually excited because this is one of the sectors that we don't get to talk about a ton with a lot of the other shows we do in the programming, especially with like everything else that's going on in the market right now, right? The Fed, inflation, real estate, everything else. Esports is kind of a niche sector. I don't actually know a ton about it myself. I actually learned a lot coming into this event, but it's a really cool niche sector right now. There's a lot of exciting stuff happening, and I think the biggest trend that we're going to see today, and we're going to dive into this with some of the names, but some of the list makers that we have are big, well-recognized brands, right? You've got people like EA, Activision Blizzard. These people have made forays into esports. I think it's going to be kind of cool to dive in and see how they're getting involved.
And the best thing to me about esports is the fact that you've got different types of games for different types of folks, right? So whether you're, you're whether into first-hand shooting, whether first-person shooting, whether you're into sports, whether you're into something like a Rocket League type thing, you've got something for everybody. Someone actually told me the other day there's like a Dragon Ball Z league. I don't know, but if you want it, you could do it. There's a Monopoly League, although if you would call that esports or not, I'm not quite sure. But yeah, we'll have a bunch of interviews coming up as well. Our man Mitch is going to have an interview later on with Super League as well, so that'll be something fun for you guys to kind of stay tuned to. That Super League gaming, of course. Well, let's go ahead and kick this off with our List Maker series. If we can go ahead and get that up, because we definitely want to start talking about these teams. And I believe TSM is going to be the first one that we talk about right over here. And again, we're just, there's the main thing about this Listmaker series is that there's so many different companies and teams out there that we wanted to go ahead and showcase the ones that we felt here at Benzinga were making the biggest noise and the ones that needed to be recognized. So we'll go ahead and start with our first one, which is going to be Tsmftx. And they are a professional, right? This is not just you and playing in the basement, but they're a professional esports organization that's seeking to provide maximum value through competitiveness. And of course, they're competing, but they're also making sure that they educate and entertain and deliver entertaining content to give you guys at home the ultimate esports and gaming experience, man. What do you think about this one?
See, this one's really interesting. And the headline that stood out to me about them is the $210 million sponsorship they just did with FTX, right? This is interesting because FTX is everywhere. They're on arenas, they're on sporting events, they're on race cars. FTX is everywhere right now. So the fact that they're getting involved with TSM Esports, to me, is a really, really good sign. For somebody widespread like FTX, you want a well-known brand like this involved with you guys. So this one's really interesting. The crypto exchange paid $210 million for the naming rights to the esports organization TSM. The deal's for 10 years and $21 million a year, which, again, another thing that'll drop in there really quick, the amounts of money floating around in this industry right now are mind-boggling to me. 21 million a year. I mean, that's like as much as my favorite quarterbacks make in the NFL, right? So this is insane. There's amazing amounts of money going around here. And in fact, they actually said this. It's larger than the 19-year, $135 million deal that FTX paid for the naming rights to the home arena of the NBA's Miami Heat. So this is a really big deal, right? This is obviously huge. Yeah. There's a lot of really interesting stuff in this article, but what's your take on everything here?
Well, the main thing for me is the recognition amongst the, I don't want to say younger crowd, but esports typically, just based on stats, not my opinion, is typically towards the younger age group. And so with crypto being pretty popular among that age group as well, I think it's a perfect fit, especially with the sponsorship. And the more crypto stuff you get involved with the younger age group, only the more beneficial it'll be, because they're the ones that are going to start spending more and more money as they get older, and then they have their kids, you know what I mean? So it's just kind of trickling down effect. So I like it. I think it's a great investment, and definitely a reason that they are on our list makers here. Let's move on to the next one, which is going to be Faze Clan. If you're big in the esports world, you have definitely heard of Faze Clan. They've done a lot of popular things. They've also got Kyler Murray from Arizona, quarterback, professional, NFL-wise. He's a part of Faze Clan as well. So they're doing some big stuff. They've always competing in some high esports level things as well. I mean, if you want to talk about a team that competes at a high level and that puts out content and has that brand recognition, Faze Clan is definitely one of them.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you look at some of the bigger names associated with these people too, right? The professional influencers, they've got Pitbull, they've got Snoop Dogg, and the CEO has described Faze Clan as the Dallas Cowboys meets Supreme meets MTV. I don't even fully understand what that means, but it sounds really sick, so I'm just going to say that's probably a good thing. But Faze Clan is a really cool one. They have a lot of stuff going on. Obviously, one of the bigger things was the LGBTQ incident they had recently, where they're still working on addressing that, but it sounds like they've obviously made a huge effort to increase the inclusivity of the platform too, and I think that's something that's not really talked a lot about with esports. You might even know this better than I do, but the inclusivity of everybody on these platforms with the number of people that are involved in it is huge, and it sounds like they've been working to address that.
They sure have. And then I want to go ahead and move on to the next one that we're going to have, because as you mentioned, making sure that you're inclusive to everyone involved, in my opinion, there's no better organization that does that than XSET. I've gotten a chance to know this organization a little bit through research, but I've also been following some of their influencers and their co-owners and all that other good stuff. And they absolutely, especially Aaron Ashley Simon, who is big on Twitter, and she does a lot of great stuff. She just did a hosting event with Xbox the other day. And I know her and the organization are big on making sure they're inclusive to everybody, right? Making sure that, hey, esports is still small compared to other fields and other areas, which is why we wanted to go ahead and have this Listmakers to kind of make a push for it. And you see the great influencers that they have. They recently had a T Grizzly that went ahead and joined them as well. And you also have Ezekiel Elliott that's a part of the team. So some big names right there, Michael.
Yeah, absolutely. T Grizzly is one of my favorites, I'm not going to lie, when it comes to music. Again, bigger names associated with these people, right? I think it's interesting when you're looking at all of these different platforms, the bigger names and the celebrities and the personalities that these platforms are able to bring in and get associated. To me, it says something about esports as a whole, right? I think it's really interesting how many people are getting into this.
Yeah, by the way, we do have a panel coming up with Chris Catchy, who's going to have a member of XSET, and of course, I'm going to be interviewing this founder and CEO, Greg, later on today as well. So really excited for the interviews that are coming up with XSET, and we'll get more information and kind of find out what cool stuff they're doing, because there's always some behind the scenes things that they're working on that we may not be privy to. But let's go ahead and move on. This name I just really like. Like, I wish this was kind of like my gamer tag, if you will. My gamer tag is not as cool, and that's going to be Dark Zero Esports. And of course, Dark Zero Esports is also a professional esports organization that combines state-of-the-art training and development, known for their Rainbow Six Siege team and their rising ambition to gather talent, mentor, and guide them through playing at a high level. Something key here to me is always looking to develop teams and teammates, right, and players, because not everyone knows just how to play the game at a professional level. You may think you're good at home, but then when you play against the pros, Michael, you get humbled a little bit.
This is true. Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's really interesting is like them and their teams coming through big. Obviously, their biggest news recently was the Charlotte Major, which they took home the trophy at. They know what they're doing, right? And again, like you said, when you come up against the pros, it's a whole different level of preparation. It's a whole different level of ability, skill, and talent and everything else. And I think what they're doing is showing up true. When you take home something like the Charlotte Major, you're clearly getting to the most important parts of what your game is. And I think they're showing their true colors right here.
Yeah, they definitely are. And again, want to quickly kind of let you guys know, in terms of teams, we had recognized Tsmftx, Faze Clan, XSET, and Dark Zero as well. You know, to me, it's interesting how many different, these are teams. We're going to get into organizations and different things like that here in a moment, but these are teams. So they're competing at a high level for millions and millions of dollars. I mean, Michael, I have friends, because I'm involved in the esports field at the NBA 2K level. I mean, they're folks making six figures in a matter of 6 to 7 months. I mean, that's that, and playing at home, right? My mom would tell me that wouldn't get you anywhere. Clearly, she was wrong.
You know, that is the funny thing, right? I think pretty much everybody, especially this younger generation, can relate to parents telling them that this stuff is never going to pay off, right? This isn't going to be a job. It's not going to be a career. And the funny thing is, the last couple of years, that trend has flipped. And all of a sudden, everybody has realized this can be a legit living. Like I said, some of these crazy numbers we have getting tossed around with FTX and TSM, there's a lot of money to be made in this industry. Not just in this industry, but just in the surrounding industries too. The apparel, the merchandise, the licensing, the advertising. There's a lot of money floating around in this entire sector right now. So I think all the parents out there that told their kids there couldn't be a living, I think that's kind of coming to an end. We're starting to see the reverse side of that.
And what's going to be cool is the endorsements. I mean, it's already happening. It's not like it's coming, but the endorsements that these young gamers have. That's why with some organizations, they're working really hard to make sure, hey, you can't say some crazy stuff in party chats because you got to be professional. And of course, with social media, it's pretty easy to go ahead and expose the negative stuff, if you will, right? So you got to be very careful, and that's why I love these organizations. And so let's go ahead and move on to the other side, which is going to be companies that we're going to go ahead and recognize in this Listmaker series. On the esports side of things, we covered the teams, and now we are going to go ahead and cover the companies, with the first one being a company that you may or may not have heard of, but I can almost guarantee that you've definitely heard of a game that they go ahead and operate, and that's going to be Epic Games. And man, Epic Games, of course, they're an interactive entertainment company that provide 3D engine technology. But the biggest thing that they operate is Fortnite, which is the world's largest game with about 350 million accounts and 2.5 billion friend connections. And I mean, that's just crazy. Who hasn't heard of Fortnite? Whether you play or not, you've heard of it.
100%. Yeah, everybody knows these names. And again, like I said, it's this prevailing trend we keep coming back to of this becoming more and more prevalent. You've got celebrities, you've got personalities, you've got huge numbers of people operating with the platforms. And then you get stuff like Fortnite going, which, let's face it, that's a phenomenon with the younger generation, right? I don't play it. I never have. I've never understood it, but I've got like 4 little brothers and they love it, right? It's like their nightly ritual is Fortnite. So you get something like this that's popular enough and you take these prevalent trends and you get involved with it and you start to take a foothold in it. That's a major step of progress for the company, and you're going to get in with the younger generation early.
Yeah, no, you absolutely will. Definitely. And of course, they had a little bit of a back and forth. I believe it was with Apple and the apps and, different things like that. But Epic Gaming with Fortnite, they definitely hit a home run there. I mean, it's huge. And just about everyone plays it. And of course, there's millions and millions of dollars to be won if you're if you're playing Fortnite. But let's go ahead and move on to the other company that's on our list, and that is going to be United Esports. And United Esports is an esports and gaming marketing agency that offers strategic positioning and creative solutions designed to engage with the age group between 18 and 34. And of course, all meeting points of engagement is kind of dealt with them. So now you've got a gaming marketing agency. And I talked about the age range earlier, told you it wasn't just based on my opinion, but we talked about crypto and how that compares into it. 18 to 34 is the demographic that United Esports focuses on as a marketing agency.
Yeah, this is really interesting, right? Because they actually have, here on their home site, like all of their different advertising pages, their media and marketing. It's not just like the esports side of it anymore, but now you bring in like the licensing and the advertising and all the different ways that you can get involved in this beyond just playing the actual sports. So I don't know if they're one of the first that have gotten into this. They're certainly one of the ones that I've seen more prevalently. And again, I'm not a heavy consumer of esports as a whole, but these guys are a name that I see pretty regularly. So I feel like they're making a really significant impact on the advertising side and the marketing side pretty early on. But either way, exciting to see. And I'll tell you something else, like some of the ways these people have their sites laid out, some of the graphics and stuff they have, they're awesome. They're super exciting to explore. Like some of these people are doing a really cool job.
And that's the cool thing about esports is you're trying to entice a different type of age group, a different type of market than you typically usually would have. And of course, when it comes to marketing and when it comes to esports, when it comes to anything, branding is everything, right? We work with so many different companies. Brand is everything that we care about because we want to make sure we're working with the top quality companies and make sure we're representing not just them, but ourselves as well. And we care about our brand here at Benzinga. So it's great to have United Esports helping the way for the young generation to represent themselves when it comes to branding. Let's move on to the next one. And it's a name that I know you're pretty familiar with, and that's going to be GMG, which is Golden Matrix Group. What can you tell me about them?
Golden Matrix Group. Yeah, exciting one. I'm actually very excited. You're going to be running a personal interview with Golden Matrix Group, Brian Goodman, later today. Very excited to watch that. I have a crush of meetings, so I won't be able to interview Brian personally. It happens, but I'm very much looking forward to you talking to him. Golden Matrix is a really, really interesting company. You can see their homepage. They're a leading provider of turnkey white label gaming platforms, esports technology, and gaming content. They're one of the first to do it. And what's interesting, too, is that they're one of the best performing companies in the space right now, too, especially at a time when, and we kind of talked about this at the beginning, but when so many things are seeing some downtrends right now, like I said, real estate, inflation is going higher, the oil markets and the gas prices we have, the esports sector is something that doesn't necessarily stand alone, but has some different growth factors that can cause it to grow. And Golden Matrix is one of those companies that's kind of taken advantage of this the last couple of months. So a lot more exciting stuff to say there. I know Brian Goodman will give you updates on our Kings and everything else they work on, but a lot of really interesting stuff to cover with him. One of the things I think, and this is the last thing I'll kind of run through, is just their stock performance over the last last couple of months, right? They've risen 2.3% in the last week. And again, this comes back to them kind of bucking the trends of the market and performing pretty well right now. But there's a lot of exciting things they have in the pipeline. So I'm going to be really interested to see how this company performs over the second half of the year, especially considering all the new products they're about to bring out.
Yeah, and of course, our investors that want to possibly get into the company itself should be having a fun and informative interview with GMG later on today. Should be exciting. Appreciate the insight on them. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one, which is Super League Gaming. Now, I already kind of told you guys this, but Money Mitch, aka Mitch Hotch, is going to go ahead and have an interview later on today with this company here. But Super League Gaming builds and operates networks of games, monetization tools, and content channels across the metaverse. Keyword, we'll get to that in a second. Gaming platforms that empowers developers, energizes players, and entertains fans. Metaverse, that's the keyword that stands out to me here. Metaverse to me sounds like what our parents may have thought about the internet back in the 1990s.
Dude, yeah, that's the funny thing is, like, I don't fully understand the metaverse, right? It's a term I hear like every single day. I'm always around it. I'm always having people talk to me about it. I'm still struggling to like wrap my head around it, which is honestly a little bit concerning because I'm still pretty young, but I don't really get this. But to be honest, like, I think they're one of the ones that obviously they're a huge name in this space. They're a huge name in the metaverse itself. I'm excited for the hand interview because I think we're probably going to get some really valuable insights about why what they're doing matters. And it's probably going to be good to just get some firsthand knowledge of here's what we're doing in the metaverse, here's why it's so important, and here's what's coming next for Super League too. Because if you look at their platform and what they do, they're spread out all over the place. They're going in a million different directions, and so far, everything seems to be going in the right direction for them.
Yeah, and of course, when it comes to the metaverse, don't worry, Michael. There will be a gym in the metaverse. So if you want your character to work out there as well and look just like you, that's absolutely okay. We can make that happen.
That's all I care about.
You know, it'll be it'll be really interesting to see how companies monetize the metaverse, right? Because even in the metaverse is designed, in my opinion, to also a part of it to be like our real world where you have different companies and billboards and different things like that. So it's kind of cool to visualize, hey, even in the metaverse, you can have endorsement deals where your character can maybe wear a certain type of clothing and branding, and you get real money in the real world that you can use for real cars and different things like that. So it's cool to kind of see how the transformation may be in the near future of virtual endorsements, if you will, translating to real currency that we can go ahead and use in the real world as well. But let's go ahead and move on to the company that we have all heard of, and that's going to be Microsoft. Microsoft, of course, you know, in the beginning they had Halo, which was exclusive to Xbox, and now they're working to possibly go ahead and team up with Activision. I don't believe that buyout has gone through just yet, but Microsoft, a big name, and they do a lot of stuff, right? We obviously use their products in terms of Office, Word, Excel, and then we also go ahead, and I'm sure a lot of people use what is it? They're like competitor to AWS as well. What do you think about Microsoft in the esports field, though?
Well, yeah, this is really interesting, right? And I think you touched on the most important part here that we're obviously going to discuss more later. But if you look at one of the biggest pieces of news from Microsoft, and like you said, right, everybody knows this brand. Microsoft is everywhere. They've been a staple in households for 30, 40, 50, 60 years, right? But when you look at their push into gaming, I'm reading an article here from the SP that talks about their push in with Activision Blizzard. And this, I think, is the most significant part, right, is the $68.7 billion Activision Blizzard takeover. There's a lot to talk about here. We've reported on this for months, obviously, but the deal is expected to close in 2023. Activision Blizzard has 400 million active players as of right now, and Microsoft acquiring them, as much money as Microsoft has, which, let's face it, it's not a couple of pennies in the bank. They have a lot of capital. This is still a major acquisition. And again, you come back to this prevalent theme of when you see major players like Microsoft and people like that getting into the esports space, I think it says something about the future of where these companies are expecting this to go.
Yeah, and you know what's great about having companies such as Microsoft and other companies that we'll talk about here in a minute is the fact that they're investing in esports, which clearly companies are always forward looking, right? They want to make sure that, hey, what is coming up next so that we can be a big player in it, or else you end up like a, you know, like a blockbuster, if you will. And so it's really cool and neat to see Microsoft continue investing because after they go ahead and complete that merger, they'll be the world's third largest gaming company by revenue behind Tencent and Sony. And so it's really neat to kind of see them take advantage of that. And of course, you've got Call of Duty, which is owned by Activision as well. That is huge in the esports world. I mean, I've seen some of the tournaments that they had in Dallas and Toronto, I believe is where they held their last one or one of the previous ones. Large crowds. I mean, just you wouldn't believe how much energy and trash talking especially goes into esports. Because I mean, think about it. You've got a younger generation that's not afraid to let you know you stink.
Hey, it's funny because we've got a couple of, I wouldn't call them older gentlemen, but definitely guys on the older side of the walk of life here in the office. I'll throw out Adam Partridge's name, and he tells us regularly about his 2 a.m. exploits in Call of Duty. I mean, the guy's in the game every single night, and he's punishing kids from across America, just headshotting and sniping and all kinds of stuff. Like, trash talking is real, and he's dropped some golden lines on us before, but I know he's not quitting anytime soon, so the older generation can get into this too.
Hey, Adam, bullying is not something that we're a fan of here at Benzinga. Right? Leave the younger generation alone. But I mean, that's the thing that you talked about, how you've got, brothers and nieces and nephews that will go ahead and play at night because that's the way they want to kind of have a part of their daily routine. I mean, I play as well, right? I play 2K. That's the game that I like to play. I play FIFA sometimes as well. So it's great. Again, you've got Overwatch there as well, which is another esports that's big. They're kind of rising as well. But let's go ahead and continue. It's great to see Microsoft and other companies having an investment. And let's go ahead and recognize another company that we have all heard of, that we have all played their games, and that is going to be Nintendo. I mean, if Mario Kart 64 was an esport when I was younger, I definitely would be top 100.
Oh, 100%, right? I mean, Super Smash Bros, Mario Kart, like all of these games are so well known. And again, you talk about that trend of the people that are getting into this that are well-known brands. What's more well-known than like Super Mario Smash Bros, bro? Mario Kart, stuff like that. These are games that have been staples for everybody for years and years and years. I still play Super Smash Bros, right? So I think one of the coolest things here is the GeekWire article we were reading this morning that talks about the Super Smash Bros getting an officially licensed esports tournament, which, again, when you talked about like the teams earlier and people getting into that kind of stuff, this is pretty cool because now it's not just people individually kind of going through their games and their platforms. You've got tournaments actually coming out, and if Nintendo's getting into this too, another well-known brand, they've been around forever, you've got to think there's some traction behind this. So I think it's really cool to see Nintendo into this as well.
It is really cool. Now, something that I like about Nintendo that doesn't necessarily have to do with esports, but I got to mention it, is you had the Nintendo 64, which, by the way, I checked the other day because I wanted to get one on eBay. Still goes for like $100. It's used. It's 20 years old, but still goes for $100. It's amazing. But it's also the fact that they've been able to kind of innovate with their console. You've got the Nintendo Switch where, I mean, it is so portable. You can take it anywhere you need to and then play with your friends and family and whatever. And you can hook it up to the TV. And that way it's kind of like a real gaming experience that you can travel with without having to take your whole console. So that's what I love in terms of innovation when it comes to Nintendo. But of course, you cannot not talk about the games that they're most popularly known for. You've got Mario that we talked about. You've got Donkey Kong. You've got Legend of Zelda. You've got Pokemon. And of course, the biggest one so far, at least recently, has to be Animal Crossing. Did you ever play Pokemon? Did you try to catch them all, or was that not your scene, pal?
No, dude, I definitely did some Pokemon back in the day. I was what you would call a nerd at an early age. I was homeschooled, which definitely played into it. But, I was a Pokemon player. I definitely did that. Now, Animal Crossing, that's a game my little sisters still love. I've got a couple of little girls that absolutely play that game once a day. It's like one of their favorite things, right? So Animal Crossing is a big one. I never got into that personally, but Pokemon, dude, I had the cards, I had the game, I had the DS. Like, I was all the way into it back in the day. So as far as I know, that's still a thing. I haven't really been into it in a while, but as far as I hear, that's still pretty popular.
I mean, I believe it was maybe just a few years ago where you had the Pokemon game where you had to go to certain places and there was a Pokemon there that you could go ahead and check on your app and things like that. I mean, I've never had friends and family want to get their steps in by trying to catch Pokemons at a park that was 3 miles away because they wanted to catch this virtual creature and have a collection or whatever. So, I mean, you got to give credit to Nintendo. They're kind of using, and they have their market research and find different ways to have the same product, right, which is Pokemon, but go ahead and remix it in a way where the generation and the user base for today can still go ahead and engage with it as well. So definitely something I like about Nintendo and their innovation. But let's go ahead and move on to the next one. We briefly touched on this company because of Microsoft, but we got to go ahead and talk about them as individual company themselves, and that is going to be Activision Blizzard. We talked earlier, about Call of Duty and how big that is. I mean, anytime they anytime on Twitter or any other social media platform, man, if there is a Call of Duty preview that is coming, it gets tons and tons of engagement. And I mean, it's just a very well-known brand. You see right there, if you want to scroll down a little bit more, you've got the Overwatch League that I mentioned. Shout out to Brad Ross. He's the man who leads things there on the operation end. And then you've got the Call of Duty League as well, which shout out to Bailey. He's the one who hosts that. So it's huge. It's big. And look at that. You would think that that's a concert right over there, but no. Those are fans that want to see their favorite teams and players compete at a high level. I mean, that crowd is just insane.
It is, yeah. And again, like I said, you talked a little bit about, how you need to engage with the younger generation, like Nintendo revamping their products and stuff, right? I think when you have a scenario like this where you're looking at a packed arena for an esports tournament, there are some people that have been able to meld and blend their products over and over again to a point where they can engage not just their original user base that are still using their products, but the younger generation too. And I think that's what you've got here. When you can bring in a crowd like this to a tournament in person for esports, you've clearly got the ability to engage with generations over and over again, revamp your products, and keep people interested in what you're doing, so much so to the point where you would go to an in-person tournament.
And of course, from the company standpoint, you've got just the game that you're making money with, and then you're making money through the league itself. And then you also can make money depending on what the team's contracts or things are like, or through apparel and, different things like that. And you can have small pockets of events happening throughout the countries to kind of qualify you to play against the pros as well. So it's like, cool, you didn't make it as a pro, but if you believe you can make it as an amateur, let's have a tournament for you. Let's have an event for you so that if you qualify, you can go up against the pros. And that's something that one company we'll talk about here in a moment is doing. I think it's been working so far to get the amateur fans. Because think about it, right? If your niece or your nephew is playing and competing, trying to be a pro, and they qualify, they'll want you to tune in. And now they just got a fan in you, or else you may have never watched it. You know what I mean? So it's cool that they kind of have that synergy between them. But definitely some great stuff coming in. Call of Duty is already so big. You can only imagine if Overwatch catches on fire, then they can kind of figure some things out and have their success. Big things coming for them, no question about it. But moving on from Activision Blizzard, I want to go ahead and move on to the next company, which is going to be Take-Two Interactive. And this company is someone that I'm kind of a little bit familiar with. But Take-Two Interactive Software is a developer, publisher, and a marketer of interactive entertainment for console gamings, not just for PC, but also for mobile, which obviously includes our smartphones and our tablets. Now, they go ahead and allow you to go ahead and download their games digitally, or you can go ahead and have a disc. Now, I'll be honest, I can't remember the last time I bought a disc game. It might have been 2016 or so, give or take. But Take-Two Interactive also has ownership of the NBA 2K League, which is the esports division of the NBA. So you have your NBA, you have your G League, you have your WNBA. You also have an esport called the NBA 2K League. And it's really cool because in the future, you'll have more and more fans that buy 2K, right? The game itself for basketball. Then they see the esport of the 2K League hopefully involved in that gaming platform. And now you're a fan of the esports as well. So we talk about kind of cross marketing and that synergy between these two. I like what they're trying to do, and hopefully in 3-4 years, you can really see that blend and just take their esport to another level.
Absolutely, yeah. It's funny because Take-Two Interactive was actually the first investment I ever made on my Robinhood account when I first started investing like 6 years ago. I don't even really remember if I understood what fundamentals were at the time or what exactly makes a company profitable. I was just investing because I thought it was a cool company, right? And some of that still holds true. Like, I think the way that they've blended their products and adapted what they're doing, it stayed really, really interesting. And Take-Two is another one of these companies where rather than just staying with the user base that they have, they're adapting, they're shifting, they're bringing in new products, and they're expanding their portfolio to engage all different kinds of people in the esports landscape, right? So they're a company that I still don't know as much about as I want to, and to be honest, one of the reasons is that they just have almost too much to take in, but that's a good thing, right? When you have that many things going on in your company, you're getting in front of a diverse segment of clientele and a diverse segment of customers too, but you're also focusing on the quality of each parts of the company as well, and that's something that they're definitely doing. So Take-Two is one that I find really interesting. I also think, if you look here on their site, you'll see how the parental controls kind of factor into what Take-Two does as well. And that's a really important topic, right? Not something that we've touched on a whole lot so far in this event, but the parental controls for how your kids interact with these games. And like you mentioned earlier, the inclusivity and the trash talking and some of the stuff that goes on these platforms, you want to be able to have insights into what your kids are doing with these games. And the fact that Take-Two prioritizes that, they've won awards for this and they've done a great job with it, I think that means a lot when it comes to how Take-Two engages with their users.
Absolutely. Now, I want to do me a favor. Stay on that site there and go ahead and click on their games. If you want to go back to it here in a second, I'll continue talking. But go ahead and click on their games, and I want to show the diversity that they have when it comes to their games and what they have for the fans. This is a new one that they recently have, right? Not a sporting game whatsoever. You can see right there, you've got shooter games, you've got sports games, and you've got strategy-based games. If you want to scroll down a little bit more, you can see the variety. Of course, Marvel Midnight Suns being one of them, and you can't forget about WWE 2K. I mean, WWE, my favorite wrestler is The Rock. I don't care what. I've played WWE for quite some time. I don't play it anymore, but when I did, I've always got to play with The Rock. No matter what, love it. Cage match, whatever you want to call it, love it. But just see the variety of different. We talked about merch and different ways for them to have revenue as well. But I just wanted to make sure the fans at home understood that you have companies that are not just getting into esports, but also diversifying their portfolio when it comes to esports as well, with different types of games and different things that they go ahead and offer themselves. But that's Take-Two Interactive, that we wanted to make sure we recognize on this Listmaker series for esports. Let's move on to the next one, which is going to be Sony. Everyone has heard of Sony, but you may not know how involved they are in the esports world, but they're obviously recognized as a global leader when it comes to interactive and digital entertainment. And they're also obviously a response for PlayStation, which all of us have heard of, even if you haven't played on it. And they also have services such as you have your PlayStation 5, which is the newest one, but they've been doing this since PlayStation 1. And they also went ahead and had what was called a PSP, which I believe was the PlayStation Plus is what it stood for. And that's, again, look, true story. I think I was maybe in high school and I was not paying attention in class and I was just playing on my PSP. That's what we used to call it. And I got in trouble. Yeah, I got it taken up. I got it back at the end of the day. But Sony, again, another company that's been around for quite some time, but understands that the future is esports and is looking to make investments in there as well.
So true, yeah, because I actually remember the PSP system as well. That was one that I had.
Yeah.
There were a bunch of great games on there, but again, I think it's so interesting that they've managed to keep the engagement. Even though those products were in use 10, 15 years ago, they're finding a way to continue to stay relevant in the esports industry. So I think one of the things that, stood out to me when we were doing research for this was the patents for the expansive tournament systems and betting, like you'll see in this article that they're doing. Their tournament modes, and the thing that they're focusing on is the acquisitions of these game tournaments, right? Now, again, this is a company that has the capital to do it. They have the capital to go out and acquire these tournaments, these leagues, these teams, and I think they're doing a really good job of finding the ones that are popular with the younger generation, staying in focus and staying relevant, but then deploying that capital to continue growing the expansion of all the tournaments and the games that they have. So they're clearly taking it seriously. And again, the fact that they've been able to shift from, the pixelated games that I remember in the early 2000s all the way up to what they're doing now with a focus on esports and metaverse and everything else, it's a pretty impressive shift. And I think that says a lot about their management team too.
What's great is, for our viewers, obviously we kind of focus on financial markets such as the stock market, futures, crypto, and things like that. We want to make sure that we can kind of be that one-stop shop for anyone that wants to trade, swing trade, invest into their future. And what's cool, and I want to take a quick moment here, not just to recognize Sony, but you have companies such as Microsoft, you have companies such as ATVI, Activision Blizzard, and you also have a company like Take-Two Interactive. If you believe that esports is the future, and again, we're not, financial advisors, we haven't been certified and things like that, but just a mindset for the viewers at home to kind of take into is, hey, you're kind of looking at your portfolio and you're trying to figure out, hey, what do I believe is the future? And what do I believe are companies that are going to be set up well to perform at a high level in the future? This is why we kind of have this event, to kind of encourage and introduce the viewers at home to companies that, hey, these are companies that we believe, based on our research, are worth recognizing on this list maker for the esports. Then you can go ahead and do your own due diligence at home and see if it's worth your hard-earned money or not. Just wanted to go ahead and put up that. I know this next company you're kind of familiar with, especially because I believe they've got a nice little ETF that I am definitely going to go ahead and take a look at. And that's why I wanted to make sure we talked about investment, because you've got Van Eyck, access the opportunities. Love that little slogan there. Tell me about Van Eyck.
Yeah, so the ESPO index invests in a diversified portfolio of the largest and most liquid companies involved in video game development, esports, and related hardware and software globally, with the aim of providing investment returns before fees and other costs and every other bit of language that goes into ETFs. But this fund is really interesting. I've known Van Eyck and their team for a long time. Really solid people, really interesting the way that they run their ETF. But again, this is something that we haven't covered yet as well, and I'm excited we're getting into it now, because the funds funds and the indexes that are starting to take an interest in the esports industry and dedicating entire pieces of their capital structure to esports, I think has made a major shift in the minds of many investors, where you've got ETFs coming out that are solely focused on the growth of tournaments and leagues and esports. This is a major deal. Now, again, like I said, I've known VanEck for a long time, since I got to Benzinga, worked with their team on many different projects, and they are fully in on this concept. I think their fund is built in a way where it's dedicated towards growth, but also towards a lot of these stable players too, like Sony and Activision Blizzard, where they've been in it for a while. They've got a really nice balance of trusted names, but also growth towards some of these younger players in tournaments and leagues that are coming in where they can add additions to their fund. So VanEck getting into this is a huge sign to me, but really, really impressed with the way their fund is set up too.
And I apologize, chat. We've been so focused on having a conversation back and forth. The chat's asking us to mention ticker, so we do apologize for that. But Microsoft, of course, is going to be MSFT. You can see for the Van Eyck ETF, you saw that right there, ESPO. And for Take-Two Interactive, which has the WWE, which has the NBA 2K, that's going to be TTWO. And I believe there was another one. Oh, the one that we mentioned earlier was Activision Blizzard, which is going to be ATVI. So those are the tickers. We apologize for that. We'll try to go ahead and make the list makers, if possible, reach out to our producers to make it public and possibly make sure you guys are able to check out the tickers on the top right of the slides and things like that as well. But appreciate you guys asking. Again, you've obviously heard the names. A quick Google search of the name and just mention stock ticker, and you'll see the chart. You'll see the history. You'll see their market cap. Do your own due diligence. Don't rely on two strangers on the internet who are not even in the same place at the moment. Man's hanging out in the headquarters in Detroit. But do your own due diligence and see if it's worth your hard-earned money. And especially check out the ETF, because if you're not sure which company to go with, but you believe in the industry itself, Van Eyck should be something that you should look into. But let's go ahead and kind of move on, because we do have a fun little interview here in 10 minutes with Super League Gaming. But let's go ahead and get to Roundhill Investments. Now, this is a company where, they have investments in BETZ, BETZ, which was the first ETF globally designed to track the online sports betting and online casino sector. And I'm pretty sure that if I had to bet Michael Murray's hard-earned money, Dave Portnoy was involved with this one. Of course, we're talking about Roundhill Investments. You have any additional insight on this one?
Roundhill, yes. So let's talk about the Nerd ETF a little bit, which is the one I have pulled up here. The Nerd ETF, some of their biggest holdings are HUYA, another one of my first investments on Robinhood, as a matter of fact. We've also got Tencent. They've got Activision Blizzard, so again, involved in this big acquisition that they've going on. I know the team at Roundhill pretty well as well, right? I've talked with them many times before. We've worked on a lot of projects as well. But the Nerd ETF is one of those that, if I was going to invest a lot of my hard-earned money, this is an ETF that I would go with and look at very, very closely. Again, you've got to look at all the holdings, and like you mentioned, when you're looking at these ETFs and these tickers, you've got to talk about what the composition of what goes into these ETFs. Now, the Van Eyck page is one that I would recommend very highly for a great breakdown of why their ETF is focused on esports, why they selected the companies inside of it. And the Nerd ETF does a really good job of breaking this down too, right? If you look at their overview, they believe that esports and video games are the future of live media, sports, and entertainment. So they expect by 2024 to have 578 million in terms of esports viewership. So they're not only talking about why they think the future for esports is growing, but they're giving metrics as to why they believe that's going to happen. They're looking at projected viewership, projected engagement, but growth of the industry as well. 219 billion expected to be the global games market size by 2024. Again, we talked about ridiculous numbers earlier. 219 billion is definitely on the heavy side of the money line. So it's something really interesting when you're looking at these ETFs. You've got to look at the companies that make them up, but you also have to look at the future of the companies themselves. Because again, you want this balance between growth. You also want a balance between companies that are able to adjust and adapt to the younger generations, like we've already talked about. So as you go through these funds, definitely check out the Nerd ETF, check out the Van Eyck ETFs on esports, but all of these really interesting choices to get involved in the sector as a whole.
Yeah, you've got plenty of opportunities here to figure out, hey, do I believe in esports as a future? And can it go ahead and be a part of my portfolio? And, do your due diligence based on names that you've heard here, whether you like them or not. That's completely your call. It is your money. But let's move on to the next one that we want to recognize on the Listmaker series for esports, and that is going to be Engine Media. Engine Media, now this is kind of interesting here. They develop premium consumer experiences, and they have the technology, they've got the content solutions for their partners in esports, the news, the gaming industry, all that good stuff. And you've got Eden Games, which is a game that's kind of well known in the community, but you also, they generate revenue through a combination of direct to consumer, but also subscription fees, streaming technology, and other good stuff there. What stands out to me there is a subscription fees. Now, that's something a lot of companies are going through. I remember where I just had to go ahead and pay for a key code when it came to Microsoft Word, Excel, Office, the whole suite. But now they're like, hey, you want to pay us $15 a month and you've got a subscription plan that you can hold on with Microsoft as well. So that's kind of big key to me in terms of generating additional revenue for the company themselves. And of course, you saw the ticker on the top right-hand side.
Yep, 100%. And I think there's two things to cover here. You talked about the ticker to kind of close that there. They reported their fiscal second quarter financial results. Revenue increase of 20% year over year to 9.3 million. They're on a good track there, and a fortified balance sheet with 15.3 million with the strategic sale of Eden Games. The other thing, though, that I think is really interesting about Engine Media is the Stream Hatchet, where they launched a tool to track the earned media value from brand advertisements in streaming. Now, this is really cool because it's kind of like we were talking about earlier, the advertising and the marketing side of the business becoming a bigger deal. This is a tool where you can track the value of this advertising with the Stream Hatchet tool. So I believe this is something that not a lot of people are doing as of right now. Again, I don't know a ton about the Stream Hatchet tool, but it's very exciting because, again, it shows the potential that people believe advertising has in the esports space. So I'm excited to see more about that. Engine Media is definitely one I'm going to follow, but a very interesting brand. And honestly, I'm absolutely thrilled to have them on the Listmakers.
One thing that you want to talk about when it comes to the next one is going to be eBet. And that's eBet that, you know, if you had to take a wild guess on what it is that they do, they go ahead and develop wagering products for bettors that has a portfolio of, you know, making odd models, different things like that. And they also have an electronic sports betting exchange. People love to gamble, Michael, and you go ahead and mix gambling with esports and you get controlled chaos.
It's true, right? And I think gambling is one of those things that when it comes to esports, it makes for a very interesting situation. The extent of my gambling is $10 a hole on golf because, to be honest with you, I am not a good enough gambler to go anything beyond that. And I usually lose $180 by the end of the day when we're playing 18 anyway. But when you're looking at the gambling side of bets, I think this is an interesting one because obviously it's all about the control of the chaos, right? Like you just mentioned. I think they do a pretty good job with trying to relegate this. Again, bets is not a one that I know a ton about either, but I think when you're talking about them, like they say on their homepage, leading the game in esports, casino, and sports wagering, I think they're doing it in a way that makes it exciting, but also keeps it controlled as you're wading into this. Controlled chaos, I think, is a great term for it. But again, you know more about the betting side of this industry than I do. I mean, what are your thoughts about the future for this? Not just where we're at right now.
You know, people love to bet on games so that they can make it more interesting. No one wants to see certain teams playing on a Monday night football game, but you got your fantasy players and you got your money involved in it. They're watching. So if you want to have folks that are not esports fans, but they love to gamble on for certain things, and that's a great way to kind of get more engagement as well. So definitely something I haven't quite gotten into just because of what I do on the side, but if you are someone who likes to go out and gamble and watch sports and esports, this is definitely something great that you can take advantage of. Let's move on to the next one, which is going to be Allied Esports Entertainment. Do you have any insight on this one here, Michael?
So Allied Esports is one that I was most impressed by when we were doing research, not just because of what they're doing, but also just the way they've put their brand together. We were talking about, you know, some of those giant tournaments and stuff earlier, and this is what their page reminded me of as I went to it. Was they're basically, as their homepage says, at the center of esports entertainment, global properties, live events, and production services that elevate creators, competition, and content. So when we talked about that giant arena filled with people in that earlier esports tournament, they're the ones that are kind of facilitating events like this, right? They're the ones that are putting together the ability for all these investors and individuals and people that are interested in the esports space to come together in one place and participate in these events. So I think the way that they're doing it, especially with the branding and the way that they're marketing themselves too, is really impressive. Because when I was doing research about them, this is a name that I hadn't heard before, but the second I looked it up, they were everywhere, right? I think the way they're marketing their own brand and their events that they're doing, really, really impressive.
Love it. Love it. Again, just another company for you to kind of take a look at. You can see that their flagship venue is the HyperX Arena in Las Vegas, which is where I had the pleasure of calling a game to start off the year in January. So I had 2 nights with my man Harris. We called the NBA 2K game there of a tournament. It was $50,000, a lot of fun. So the venues for esports is immaculate. It's a lot of fun. You got to check it out. Let's move on to the next one. We've got a couple left here, and that's going to be another big name. That's going to be EA. And EA Sports, rather. And if you want to take an idea on what their ticker is, I think you can figure that one out. But EA Sports, man, who hasn't played Madden?
Who hasn't played Madden, right? I mean, I know you grew up with this. I definitely grew up with this. I grew up listening to EA Sports, It's in the Game, and then the Madden 2009 soundtrack rolling and Vanity Fair playing in the background. That was my youth, right? So EA Sports is how I came up as a kid. And again, this is another example of these companies being able to shift and grow and take on the new trends as the user demographics and the user wants and needs kind of shift. Now they're getting into esports, right? They've always kind of had this hold on the video game market. Again, EA Sports was what I played with Madden football for years, right? So the fact that they're getting into this space now, I think is really interesting. And honestly, I'm pretty pumped about it too. You probably know even more about EA than I do. I'll let you riff on it, but I think all of what they're doing is pretty interesting.
All I know is growing up, I would just be like, EA Sports, It's in the Game. That's all I try to perfect in the back of the school bus. That's kind of pretty much it. But yeah, Madden's exactly how I got into this space. My favorite Madden, regardless of what you think about him, is Michael Vick 2004, especially because I am in Atlanta. So for me, Michael Vick, I don't care what team you had. I'm just going to call a little bootleg to the right side, and I'm going to the house. You can't stop me.
Yes,
and then,
sir.
I remember growing up, there was only one thing that I could get, right? So it's kind of like, hey, your birthday's coming up. What do you want? I'm like, all right, cool. I know my birthday's in January, but this game's coming out in September. I want to go ahead and get Madden. And I remember I played it on PC, and you would have 3 discs where you had to download it for the PC. But obviously now I'm on the PlayStation and Xbox side of things, and I don't have to worry about that. But yeah, EA Sports, another great company for you to check out. Ticker is going to be EA. Let's move on to our last but not the least, and that's going to be Turtle Beach. A lot of great stuff. I believe their ticker is HEAR, and the reason for that is because they make headsets for them. And matter of fact, I actually use one of their headsets whenever I game. So Turtle Beach, what are your thoughts on this one?
See, this one is actually cool because I do have a personal connection to this one. I have a friend that actually made a music album called Turtle Bay, and I believe one of his favorite headsets are from Turtle Beach. He's a huge fan of the products. So this is one I know pretty well, right? I'm not a music producer, but I know he is. I know he has a passion for it, and every time we talk about it, he's always talking about the products that make him able to do his job. And Turtle Beach is a brand he's brought up a ton of times. I think that's probably why he chose Turtle Bay. I couldn't say for sure, but he loves the brand and he loves their products. They also have teams, too. I don't know as much about the team side of the business. What I know really well are Turtle Beach's products and what they use to market there. But this is a really interesting one. I mean, I don't know if you know anything more about them, but I do know that their products and their headsets are well known in the gamer community and also the music producer industry. I know a lot of friends that use them, especially in their gaming activities.
Yeah, and what's great about Turtle Beach, as a matter of fact, if Aaron and Rohan, if you guys want to be in my ear to let us know if the next interview is ready or not, you've got Turtle Beach where you can diversify yourself in terms of headphones and headsets and different hardware when it comes to esports as well, right? So we've covered so many different companies and teams on this Listmaker series for esports where it's like, cool, I want to kind of invest in a company that's focused on the gaming side. I want to go and invest in the company that has software. I want to invest in a company where I can do esports stuff with it, and betting stuff with it, and of course the hardware side of things as well. So hopefully you guys got a chance to check out this interview. We'll try to make the list available so you can easily access things on the investment side, so you can do your own due diligence and all that other great stuff there. I told you guys we had a great interview coming up with Mitch Hodge. He's going to go ahead and have, we're going to also have a keynote speaker with Anhan, which is from Super League Gaming. So without further ado, I'm going to have us transition over to Mitch here in a moment whenever our producers are ready. Looks like they are. What is up, Mitch? What's going on, buddy?
What's going on, guys? It's good to have you guys, and I'm glad to join the Listmakers. I've been listening into you guys, and all I got to say is definitely EA Sports. It's in the game. It's in the game. I had to join in on that one. I mean, if you didn't practice that one, I mean, come on, let's just be honest. But one of the biggest things that I see is how we've definitely shifted from, let's say back in the days where we used to just play games to now actually creating what monetization out of this, right? And I think that's really what we're going to talk about coming up next here with Ann Han, the chairman and CEO of Super League Gaming. But that's really what I think that, we had the timeline, right? At first was getting the consoles out there with some real power, right? We started getting the Xbox. We had games like Halo come out that really started driving esports in this direction. And now we've really taken off. I mean, now it's not just computer games. Now we're having games where you can be on a let's say PS4, PS5, whatever you're on, and also communicating with people that are on Xbox and PC. So I think this is really the next step up. And always what has come out of this is more creator content. And I think that's why Zunaid's able to do what he does with esports. And there's a reason why Michael hears so much about the metaverse, right?
You know what? We're gonna go with that. Sure. Yeah. need to get to know it better. But
we'll get him in there for sure. We'll make sure he's got biceps in the metaverse. But Michael and I are gonna go ahead and see ourselves out. You've got a great interview, man. Looking forward to hear the conversation between you and Ann Han. It's all you.
Let's do it. Let's dive on in. All right, guys, here you guys have it. Let's go. Ann Han, chairman and CEO of Super League Gaming. I'm super excited to have her back on. She's been on Money Mitch multiple times, so I consider her now more of a friend. So glad to have you back on, Ann Han, and we might have to play some Galaga later, but let's go ahead. Let's dive into our interview. How you doing today?
I'm great. It's nice to see you again, Mitch.
Definitely. Let's dive on in. I like the sofa in the back, so I rocked a little bit of some flower print. Kind of joined in on that, but of course, let's dive on in. For a lot of people out there, they may have never heard Super League Gaming, so let's start off with some basics. What is Super League Gaming, and how do you guys generate revenue?
Yeah, so in our early days, we were focused on esports, specifically competitive gamers, but we had a unique foothold with young gamers. We learned a lot about what they want to do with their time, and where they are is they're in open world platform or metaverse games. And so we really doubled down on that, serving as a part of our role in the ecosystem, that we could be kind of generating the fan base for esports and the next generation of competitive players. But then we went wider, right, over time. So we started to be able to serve products and programs up to a whole host of gamers. So we do still do a lot with the older demographic. We just recently ran a kind of exciting Pro-Am tournament with Apex Legends. Similarly, a tournament at Syracuse University that had a broadcast component as well. So we still at our heart are a company that creates awesome gameplay experiences and content to feed the larger ecosystem of kind of avid gamers out there. But what I would say is that another thing that we made a decision to integrate into our business model was something that was much more about creator and developer empowerment. And so when we talk about how we make money, we deploy kind of ad tech, tournament tech, broadcasting tech. We give those tools to creators so they can make their own gameplay experiences and broadcast. And then by joining our ecosystem on the advertising side, we then share some of our advertiser revenue. So we bring brands in very authentically into gameplay, and then we let the creators participate in that model. So that's kind of our core. We do in some cases have owned and operated properties as well, where we go further downstream and monetize direct to consumer. So Minehut.com is one of the largest server farms for the Minecraft Java player globally. As well, we own a game inside Roblox called Anime Battlegrounds, and continue to build out some of our esports facing products in the consumer side as well.
Definitely. Now, one of the things that this goes into, and I think, truly Web3 is going into trying to change creators' lives. If we look around the world, I think reason this movement is really kind of getting pushed forward is also giving the money back to the creators. I think you guys definitely are playing into this. How would you describe Web3, Ann Han?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot of components to it that I'm not an expert in, but what I would say is that what we saw early on when we were running those esports tournaments for youth is that by just focusing on the competitive player, we were leaving so many people out. That there were people who wanted to be there for the social components. There were the creators as well who wanted to make the games or make the broadcast. And so we made a decision to cast a wider net. We now reach about 75 million monthly players in metaverse games a month, and create about 1 billion impressions. This same company a year ago, that was more like 3 million a month. So that's the kind of explosive growth that we've had. I do think that the creator economy is key. I do think the democratization of game design is key to Web3. I do think gaming will continue to be the Trojan horse for all things metaverse. What I try to assure investors, though, is I say, look, I'm not talking about Facebook Meta. I'm not talking about something that's 5 to 10 years away. Metaverse games or open world platforms have been around for over a decade, and we've been working in them for 8 years. So we play where we live, and we understand this space, and we understand the people that enjoy these types of experiences. And you don't need a VR headset to participate in these games. So it's highly accessible as well. We have not gone into NFT blockchain yet. I mean, the nice thing is we have the capability to integrate it into our tech stack. So we certainly are trying to get smarter about it and explore it. And obviously, these types of open world games lend themselves very well to digital goods and currency.
Excellent. So one way that I truly think we like to look at stories of the company is a forward outlook, right? It doesn't have to necessarily be numbers here, but where do you see Super League Gaming in, let's say, 2025, 3 years out from now? What are you heading towards, and what's the future outlook look like?
Yeah. So we did in 2020 about 2 million in revenue, about 11.8 million last year. I've given guidance that we'll do a floor of 20 to 22 million this year. By the time we're in 2025, this is a company that is sustainably cash flow positive, and is really kind of in control of its organic and inorganic growth strategy. What we have told investors is we're very mindful that in the current markets we're in, that while it's always been a growth stock, right? That's, we're early. And so we certainly have to focus on top line first and foremost. But what we have said is we're sensitive to the bottom line and understand that that is equally important in the type of environment that we're in. The stock market may not be our fault, but it is our problem. And so we take that kind of seriously, that we have to work into those dynamics. I will say right now, it's not for me to say whether the valuation of the company is fair or not. But what I would say is that right now we're enjoying a lot of conversations with investors who identify as GARP investors, growth at a reasonable price. And I think that if you look at the type of revenue guidance that we're giving, relative to our current market cap, I think we could offer a nice, attractive add-on to their portfolio, one that really has a potential for a nice kind of growth profile return to complement some of their more conservative investments.
Excellent. Let's do a little quick fourth quarter earnings wrap up. I do want to get into some more recent news and headlines and some other deeper topics, but let's just do a real quick overview. How was the fourth quarter for Super League Gaming?
Yeah, I mean, it was a record-breaking quarter, right? We did 6 million in the quarter in revenue. 3 and 4Q are always the largest quarters, because it's very heavily in the ad model. And so obviously a back to school spend and holiday spend. That said, we had record-breaking first quarter results that beat all the analyst estimates, and met our internal plan goals to deliver against that guidance that I gave. So we felt great about that. And I did mention as well in our first quarter call that we had clarity and line of sight into the pipeline, that we could already see at that time at least 4 million in revenue for 2Q. So as we're wrapping up 2Q, we feel really good again that we're delivering on plan. And on top of it, we can now see visibility into 3Q and 4Q. Some other important things happening that are the trend lines that I think investors should be looking at. That everyone says, well, what's the right KPIs? I mean, certainly being able to reach, tens of millions of players a month, that kind of impressions, those are critical stats, because an ad model is about scale. And keep in mind, our ad model is not commoditized programmatic ad model, right? We're talking about $10 to $25 CPMs. We just recently completed a deal for Samsung that was a 7-figure deal. So, that's not just people, just hiring us to create an immersive game experience. In this case, it was a concert inside of Roblox. They're also buying our media products. So imagine 3D non-playing characters, dynamic billboards that we can then augment into other game worlds. They're hiring us for our broadcast capability, which is that a lot of that technology that we've received some patents on. So they're hiring us for a real true 360 campaign. And because we already have such a large footprint in the metaverse, we can guarantee success. So we can ensure that they get the reach and the performance result they're looking for. But other trends I like, aside from seeing more 7-figure deals in the pipeline, our average median-sized deal in the pipeline that we're pursuing is now in that 200 to 300K range. Again, a year ago, it was about 50 to 70K average deal. So that's proving as well that as we continue to deliver and to have more scale and heft, advertisers will put more dollars to work with us. The other thing is in first quarter, we had 90% repeat. So of the people who bought from us, it was brands or ad agencies that have bought from us before. That means they're coming back. They like the ROI we're delivering. But then equally exciting was the diversity of the pipeline. It's not just the verticals you'd expect anymore. Yes, we did just run a fashion show over the weekend around Oshkosh, a youth brand. So kids could purchase their kind of cool clothing, and then they could, bring it into the physical life and buy those same overalls for themselves in real life. And all of these things also have layers of competitions and fun for them. But equally, we're also talking to automotive brands for our older demo products, beer, alcohol brands, insurance and banking, CPG, food. So we're seeing a nice diversity. I think everyone's kind of getting it that getting into the game, because that's where your target demo is in a really credible way, is a customer acquisition channel.
One of the things that I've been seeing, and I've been following the recent news and headlines coming out of Super League Gaming, and just going to mention some so that we can get a little forward to some other questions here. But Super League Gaming and joining forces with companies like iHeartMedia, DreamWorks Animation. So definitely some bigger names here. I would tell you guys to check it on out. If you guys want to see that, you guys can definitely go to the IR on Super League and find all the news and headlines. But one of the really cool areas that at least I even checked out was the popular MTV show, right? Wild and Out, and kind of teaming up with Mine Hut. We actually got a little clip of that. If Rohan wants to go ahead, we'll cue that up right here so you guys can check that out right quick. But it's really important, to celebrate milestones. This was a 300th episode of a really popular show. And what I liked is that the custom gameplay included in here, and really just kind of bringing in a different perspective. We want to know what the metaverse is. Well, similar videos like this is what we're going to be getting out of it. So here, check that out.
With the amount of skills in gaming out. First up, the one and only Big Cheese.
Yeah.
And then also with us is your boy Action Cheese. Action, what's good with y'all?
Yeah. Another day, another dollar. What's good with y'all?
You know what it is. Yo, I'm glad y'all joining us again. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We're going to do the same teams as last week because it skewed heavily in my favor. So it's me and your boy Action on the old school against the Queen, Justina, and Big Cheese on the new school. So it's going to be a battle of big guns versus the Royale with Cheese. See what I did there?
Okay, I like that right there. Now, Big C, talk to me nice. What's the energy today? How are we going to handle ourselves?
Oh, we're going to handle it.
What's the game plan?
We're going to handle this with no problem. We're going to give them bars. We're going to give them some smooth play. You know what it is.
Last week.
What?
So we got to
There you guys see it. We're definitely going to keep going into kind of different metaverses here. But Anhan, how are moments like this really going to continue pushing Super League forward?
Yeah, I mean, that's another exciting program. Paramount Viacom is an investor in us. They put money in us about 4 or 5 years ago. Originally, it was all around Nickelodeon, right? Because again, we had that young demographic. And so they have been a consistent annual sponsor with us over the years. But now what's exciting is we're starting to prove our value across the wider Paramount network. And there's an overlap of about 4 million in the audience that MTV's trying to reach and our Mindhut audience. And so again, it was a way to create more stickiness to that wildly popular show in the metaverse for people who are already fans, and to find new viewers for the show. So it was really a nice example of, again, that full end-to-end capability. We can build the world for you. We can guarantee people will come to it. We can extract that really great, compelling content, and then we can use an accessible pool of social media influencers to kind of then give it the additional megaphone out into the universe to drive more viewership. And that becomes self-fulfilling, because then viewers become players and players create content. And so there's a nice kind of virtual loop there. I would say as well, you mentioned iHeart. I think that is really a critical thing to point out as far as our strategy this year. We had a lot of organic growth last year, but we also had a few acquisitions. And what happened is this like happy, unfortunate challenge we have, which is we have so much ad inventory. And again, it's these very innovative ad products that I talked about. And so we couldn't possibly sell it all. In fact, a lot of it's international, and we have a domestic sales force. So we needed help. And right now I would say at best, we're selling what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5% of our ad inventory. So what I have said on investor calls is, look, I don't know what the number is, but if we sold, call it 20, maybe 30% of what's available in our ad network, I wouldn't be giving guidance for 20 to 22 million. I'd be giving guidance for 200 million. I mean, that's the opportunity that's right in front of us. And that is, I think, the single biggest lever we can pull to accelerate our top line and our profitability. And so when you think about partnering with the second largest media sales team in all of North America, that's iHeart. So iHeart's out there selling podcast and radio inventory. And now when they're pulling together an audio product for a brand, they can then put in some of our metaverse gaming inventory as well. And what's great about these relationships, and we have partners identified internationally as well that we've signed on who are selling on our behalf, is they're using their workforce, their Rolodexes, it's their operating expenditure, and we've set the contracts up in a way so there's a floor CPM, and so it means that they can't cannibalize our own direct sales efforts. So it's really a win-win for us, and exciting. And the only thing that's in our way right now is just getting those sales forces up to speed with how to sell something that's so innovative and new.
Yeah, definitely. One thing to go to is if you don't have the sales team, we can always reach out to try to get to those big sales team. I think it was a great opportunity.
And they want
joining
what
with
we
iHeart.
have. Yeah,
Exactly.
they want what
There's
we
a
have.
reason why they're willing to sell
That's
it, right? I mean, it's probably because they can sell it. But let's go ahead. Let's look in an area of interest. I know investors are talking about this. Is the interest is in the full year cost of revenue. We did see an
situation. I believe he was trying to take a look at the full year in hand. By the way, appreciate you hanging out with us today. Would you mind speaking a little bit more insight into that?
Yeah, I mean, cost of revenue is going to go up when revenues go up, right? And so when you're doing a comparison on prior year, same quarter, if the top line's going up, the cost of revenue is going to go up as well. I mean, I would say right now for us, if you imagine when we talk to a brand or advertiser, the first question is, who do you want to reach, right? Do you want to reach a over 18 demographic or under 18? And then it really is like a beautiful buffet or menu now when you look at all the different products and capabilities.
All right, looks like we're going to try to figure out the audio issues here as well. But the ticker on this one is going to be SLGG. We do apologize for the technical difficulties here. If you're in the background, if we could get Chris hang out with me and Mitch whenever he comes back as well, that would be great. But, you know, it's cool because you've got, oh, there it is. Mitch is back. Do we have Ann as well? Let us know. And if so, I'll go ahead and see myself out. We'll wait for the producers to make that call. But so far, I like what I'm hearing, man. SLGG, it's a solid stock. And of course, if viewers at home have to do their own due diligence to see if it's worth their portfolio. And looks like I am going to go ahead and continue with myself here. But Chris, if you're in the background, man, come hang out with me. Tell me your thoughts on this one. And I know you've got an event and a content for yourself coming up here in a moment as well. But chat, we've talked about a few companies here today. We obviously just heard a solid interview from Ann Han on SLGG. We've talked about EA Sports, Take-Two Interactive, Activision Blizzard, plenty of great companies that we've kind of dived into a little bit. Curious to see who you guys believe is a solid investment. And of course, the betting part of esports is just huge as well. Because you want to go ahead and kind of make sure that you are not just looking at esports. Esports just has a lot of different ways for you to get involved, right? You obviously have the gaming side. You also have the software side of things. And you also now have the betting side of things. I mean, think about it. Every one of you watching, I know in 2020, if you got a stimulus check, you wanted to put that money to work somehow, some way. Some of you may have tried to bet it on, sports when they came back. Some of you may have used it in the market. Some of you may have used it to pay bills. But to me, the betting aspect when it comes to esports is like the perfect marriage between those two. That way you can go ahead and root for your favorite teams. You can root for your favorite players, but now you can also kind of bet on them and you have a little bit more of an interest in that one as well. I'll go ahead and take a look and see what the chat says in terms of who they like to talk about in terms of investments. And of course, if our producers could let me know if Chris is in the background or if Mitch is, and if they want to join me in on this conversation, that'd be great. But another company, if we want to talk about them, is got to be, let me go ahead and take a look at the charts here. You've got EA Sports that's kind of come down a little bit more, and that's another company. We talked about Madden. We talked about the other games that they have. Now, possibly if NCAA college football, if they go ahead and release a game, which I believe they're supposed to do in 2023, that could be another big catalyst where that's additional revenue that they didn't have before. Of course, NCAA was a product of EA Sports. They stopped making the game, and they're possibly looking to bring it back as well. So that'll be something interesting. And of course, if they can make it an esports thing, that would be great in itself. Because that's just more exposure for the brand, for the game. You sell copies, you sell subscriptions based off of that. And then, of course, you've got other teams that go ahead and join themselves as well. Chris, let me know if you're in the background. And, of course, Mitch, if you're with us as well. I know, Mitch, you're having a couple of difficulties on that. And another company that we talked about before is Take-Two Interactive. They've got such a big role and a big stake in the NBA 2K League that they want to make sure that it's a thing that's profitable for a long time. The NBA 2K League has been going on for about 5 years now. They're in their 5th season. This time they've partnered up with Coinbase and a couple of different sponsors. Of course, they play on Sony, so they play exclusively on PlayStation 5 for all of their tournaments, their qualifiers, and all that good stuff as well. And that's another synergy that you see, the mix and a partnership between Sony and EA Sports as well. And of course, I believe they play all of their tournaments in Indianapolis. So that's where all their tournaments for the NBA 2K League take place. And Take-Two, you also have, I believe they've got a stake in some type of way with Rockstar, which is responsible for GTA. No clue if any of you guys go ahead and play GTA, the role play, or not, but that's something else where you have another market that comes into play with that one, more viewers, more players, and things like that. But what we'll go ahead and do is we'll go ahead and put down the countdown here in a moment of that 2-minute countdown and have our stuff lined up for the next event. And that'll give us a little break to figure out what exactly it is that we need to do here for you guys. But appreciate you guys hanging out. Producers, if we could go ahead and get that 2-minute countdown ready, that would be great. We'll be right back after a short break. What is going on, Chris?
What's up, Zunaid? How you doing?
Good, man. Good. Excited for your panel here. But when it comes to esports as the future, what are your thoughts?
You know, I'm really excited about esports in general. I really liked that panel with Ann that Mitch just did, talking about, NFTs, Web3, right? The connection of those into video games and esports. That's a sector, I know well, and I'm looking forward to that integrating into the space as well.
Yeah, and I know you've got a conversation coming up with XSET Clinton and also the CEO of Dark Zero as well. Are you kind of familiar with these companies before the research? Have you kind of interacted with any of their brands or anything like that in the past?
I wasn't too familiar before doing my research, but I really like seeing their diverse set of games, right? That they do. It's not just a one team game for either company, and I also like that they do some of the same games, right? So Rainbow Six, right? They both have teams for, so I'm excited to get into that. And here kind of as the panel says, right? What's the future of esports? What are the next video games that could be the next, Call of Duty, Overwatch, Rocket League that could really take off in esports?
Yeah, and Aaron, just let me know in my ear when we have the panels ready. Panelists are ready to go. But Chris, I mean, we talked about it before, but you've got so many different companies that you are able to invest in, not just the gaming side of things. You're able to invest in the software side of things. You're able to invest in the broadcasting part of things. Ann talked about that with SLGG. And then, of course, you've got the betting aspect of it as well. To me, betting, esports, perfect marriage, talked about it before. You agree or you disagree? It's okay if you do.
I agree. I actually started dipping my toes into the daily fantasy side of esports, where you can, pick a team, pick a roster, right? So instead of just betting on one team, bet on those esports players, right? Who's going to have the most kills? Who's going to win? Who's going to be the last man standing, and try to win some money that way as well.
Now, when it comes to Nintendo, we talked about Pokemon, we talked about Zelda. Were you a big Pokemon fan? Were you trying to catch them all at a younger age? And also when I don't know what it was called, but where you had to walk around in different random parks and find them?
I was a Pokemon fan as a kid, and now as a father with kids, my kids are obsessed with Pokemon. Pokemon Go, I remember that game well. Played it when it came out. I remember, going out, trying to catch them. I was a Team Charmander when I played. That's actually a fun question now that I've been asking people during interviews is, who was your starter Pokemon? Was it Squirtle, Charmander, or Bulbasaur? So Zunaid, I'll ask you that question. Who was your starter Pokemon?
Give me the options there again.
So Charmander, Squirtle, and Bulbasaur.
I gotta go with Squirtle. I feel like Squirtle was, for me, I always liked Pikachu, but that's not unfortunately an option because the translation there isn't quite correct. But I was a big Pikachu fan, but I gotta go with Squirtle there. But I also was a Yu-Gi-Oh fan, which isn't quite in the same realm of the same company of Nintendo, of course. But I was a big Yu-Gi-Oh fan and also Beyblades, which didn't quite take off the way I thought it would. But definitely a Yu-Gi-Oh fan for me. Collected all the cards. What was it? Blue Eyes, White Dragon, I think was one of them.
Yeah, my kids
Definitely
actually
went ahead and
recently
spent
got
money.
into Yu-Gi-Oh cards as well. So we've got Pokemon cards all throughout the house, right? And Pokemon plushies, stuffies, little figurines. So we're diehard Pokemon over here.
Now, when it comes to, is there an ETF that you're a big fan of, or any investment that you're a big fan of when it comes to esports? Of course, this isn't necessarily advice, but this is just me and you having a conversation.
Yeah, I mean, not financial advice. I am a fan of Roundhill Investments, which I heard you talk about earlier. And I'm looking forward to interviewing Mario later on about the Nerd ETF. You said it best, Sunaid, right? There's all kinds of companies to invest in the space, right? Esports teams, video game companies, the platform companies. You can just get a basket, right, of all those stocks into one ETF. So I kind of like the Nerd ETF. It has a lot of exposure to some of the international companies that maybe you can't just buy, on the NASDAQ or the NYSE. So I like that approach as well.
Yeah, fun stuff. They're definitely have to look into that because the main one that I had looked at was the Van Eck one. But I definitely need to go ahead and see if I can diversify a little bit. Again, just waiting for our producers to let us know if we're ready with the panelists. But man, when it comes to esports, I believe you've got a little one. Is that right?
So I have 3 little boys.
Go ahead, Chris. Sorry about that.
Oh yeah. So I have 3 little boys. They are fans right now of a lot of mobile games. Also, your Roblox. They haven't quite gotten into, the video game platforms or the esports field yet. They prefer, Roblox, Minecraft, and games like that right now.
Now, are they trying, like, here's the thing. When we were younger and the people would ask us, what do you want to be when you want to grow up? We'd say, I want to be a baseball player, a football player. I want to be an astronaut, this, that, the other. I feel like now the next generation is kind of going to be like, I want to be an esports professional, right? Like I want to be playing video games as a pro. And for parents, that's a tough pill to swallow.
That, or they want to be content creators, Zune.
Yes. Yes.
My middle son, Emmett, shout out to Emmett. He wants to have his own YouTube channel. He actually gets pretty jealous sometimes knowing that his dad is on YouTube all the time. So in his future, maybe he has, a YouTube show coming. But right now, I mean, as a parent, yeah, it can be kind of scary having your kids just out there, right? There is some negative stuff out there with having, a YouTube channel with kids as well. So we try to balance it right now. But yeah, I mean, when they grow up, I could see any of them wanting to be in the video game or content space.
Have you wanted to be an influencer? It's okay. You don't have to lie. Have you wanted to kind of go on TikTok and talk about, especially when SPACs were hot? I mean, you and Mitch were killing it.
Yeah.
You must have thought about trying to be an influencer in that space with your wealth of knowledge.
You know, I'm not a big TikTok guy. I don't know what it is about that platform, but I just haven't gotten into it, right? So, I mean, I have Twitter. I love Twitter. I'm on Twitter probably way too much throughout the day. That's how I get, my news and hear what's going on. And so as far as an influencer goes, I don't think I'll ever be, quote unquote, a huge one. But my kids like to think that I'm semi-famous because of being on YouTube and having followers on Twitter. So I guess I'm content with that.
Hey, you're also verified on Twitter. Don't forget that. I'm still trying to
I
get there. Who do I need
that
to
blue
hit up?
check
Who do
mark.
I need to hit up? Yeah, I might
You
need to
hit
write
me
an
up.
article or two.
Let's get you a couple articles because then you can
Yes.
apply as a writer. And I think that's all I needed was to send a link to my work, say who I work for, and it didn't take long at all. So let's get you that blue check mark.
You should go ahead and check your Slack right now because I just went ahead and Slacked you and I said, I want my check mark and I want it now. So you and I will definitely link up. We can post some charts when it comes to stocks and things like that. Because I mean, and it's crazy, right? With influencers, and let's kind of bring it back to esports and let's talk about branding. It's huge, right? I mean, you sometimes ask people, hey, who's your favorite team? Who's this, that, and the other? And sometimes they'll go ahead and mention players instead of teams. Like, I'll be honest, I'm a big LeBron fan. So I followed LeBron. So when he played for the Cavs, I rooted for the Cavs. When he went to Miami Heat, I rooted for the Heat. Then when he went to the Lakers, I rooted for the Lakers. So for me, I follow the players. So let's tie that into esports. I feel like that's another huge thing is that the younger generation will get attached to is esports pros and who they want to follow and root for.
Yeah, that's a great point. The one thing I remember is some of these new games when they come out, right? They started doing where they do, promotions with some of the top esports players or top influencers, like your Ninja, your Tim the Tatman, your Dr. Disrespect, right? Where they're playing these new video games. And then what happens? Everybody wants to play those video games, right? Because they saw their favorite people play them. And, like you said, LeBron. So like LeBron's son, Bronny, he's attached to Faze Clan, right? Who you mentioned in the opening. Faze Clan has a huge lineup of influencers and esports players. And, they're able to kind of bridge that gap, right? Get professional sports players playing their games and playing with their professional players and connect to a new audience.
Yeah, definitely. Is there anyone that you're kind of particularly a fan of when it comes to esports? I know you may not be the biggest fan of them, but any games you follow as well?
I've always liked the first person shooter games. So like when the Call of Duty games come out, when Apex Legends was big when it came out. Some of these other games, I really like. Fortnite and PUBG, when those were big, I would play them some. I would watch other people play. I feel like I'm almost the opposite of you, Zunaid. Instead of focusing on, the player, sometimes I go for the game. So it's just kind of whoever happens to be playing that game at that moment. But, I love what esports is doing and, these huge competitions that are having more fans than like the Super Bowl viewership, like, and these other big sporting events. Like, that's insane to think about as someone who grew up with, the 4 professional US sports leagues, right? There is a world outside of that.
Dude, I'm telling you, man, I got a chance to obviously, I go to a couple of esports events, but if there is ever one in Detroit, we're going to need Benzinga to make sure that we're there as media and cover it because, man, the atmosphere, especially for your Call of Duties, your Overwatches, your Rocket League, which is another one I'm personally trying to get into. That's a fun little game mode there. The fans are just electric, right? The energy in that stadium, the atmosphere is just something I've never personally seen before. Obviously, you have your NBA and things like that, which is great, but no one would have really thought that playing video games at a pro level, you would draw out as many. I mean, think about it. Who about 15 years ago thought that people would want to watch other people play video games? Because I remember whenever it wasn't my turn to play video games and my friends were, I was bored out of my mind, but it's because they sucked. When you watch pros play now, you're kind of hooked and you're trying to learn a few tips or tricks there.
And I'll tell you, Zunaid, we're just in the beginning because, as I said, my kids want to be content creators. They watch YouTube, and what do they watch? They watch other people playing video games. They watch other people unboxing toys, right? So they don't have the toy, but they're watching someone else open it. They're watching other people play Minecraft, other people play Roblox, and I'm like, come on, guys, like we're gonna watch this all day. Like let's watch a show. Let's watch a movie.
Yeah.
Right. But
Yeah.
they love it. So, growing up that generation, it's just gonna continue, I think.
It's mind-blowing to me how many folks enjoy watching unboxes. Like, I get it if it's like an expensive phone, car, something like that, that you may not be able to, get a hold of at the moment for whatever reason. But besides that, it's like you really just spent 30 minutes watching someone unbox something. So, I
Like
mean,
a
that kind of blows my
$5
mind.
blind bag. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, all right, cool. Hey, and people watch others unbox Pokemon cards and packs and different
Yep.
things like
Oh
that.
yeah,
So
we watch Pokemon card openings for sure.
see, there you go. And the biggest thing is it's not necessarily that they're watching the pack be open. They're watching their influencer. They're watching their personality. When I'm talking about specifically about the person and their reaction. So it kind of goes back to my point of how key branding is when it comes to esports, when it comes to these influencers, when it comes to just the mesh of it. That branding and the personality that you put on is just huge, right? I mean, how many times, even when you're watching ESPN or any other show, we have a bunch of shows here. We have a bunch of on-air talent. Viewers like to hop on shows. You could be talking about something completely different, but if you like the talent, if you like the personality on air, you'll do well. Dave Portnoy is a good example for me on Twitter.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think we've seen that, across the Benzinga shows network, right? I mean, I used to do a SPAC show with Mitch, right? We talked about SPACs. They were very hot. Now I'm doing an NFT show, right? NFTs, again, a huge, segment now. And I like to think that some people have watched both shows, right? Because they found me interesting. They like, my point of views, my personality. So if that's bringing viewers to Benzinga, then I am all for that.
Makes perfect sense, man. We are going to try to go ahead and get Aaron Bree to join us because I know that's someone else who will have some interesting points when it comes to esports. And of course, we do have another segment coming up here in a few minutes around 12:50. We'll go ahead and have an interview as well with a couple of different organizations in the esports field. How long do you think till esports kind of really catches on fire? Right? Kind of like where it's like everyone is talking about, oh, we got to invest in esports, similar to how they kind of did when crypto was happening and popping to the 20,000 level for the first time 3-4 years ago.
I think we're probably, 5 years out from really catching fire, right? Because now we're seeing the huge video game companies really invest in the space, grow their intellectual property through these esports leagues. And let's face it, the companies like Activision that had Call of Duty and Overwatch leagues, I'm going to guess that their competitors were a little jealous, right? And we're like, hey, why can't we do that? So I think as more of these leagues are kind of brought up, and also the colleges, let's not forget colleges now offering esports as like a course and having their own esports teams, right? So, I mean, I know here in Michigan, you got like Northwood, Oakland, Western Michigan has an esports team, and they just built like a new esports arena, right, to host in-person events. Like, once you see the schools really start to do that, I think it opens up another wave of that growth.
Now, we've obviously talked about esports. We've also talked about crypto early on. I don't think you were part of the conversation of that because I was having with Michael. Do you feel like that's a good blend, right? Because the younger generation is into crypto. The younger generation is into esports. To me, it makes sense, similar with betting and esports. What are your thoughts on crypto and esports having that partnership as well?
Yeah, I'm a huge proponent of getting NFTs into video games, right? And the biggest parallel for me is you look at a game like Fortnite. People are willing to spend $20 on a skin for Fortnite. But what do you get to do with the skin outside of the game? Nothing. What happens if Fortnite goes away? You don't have the skin, right? You lost your $20. Whereas if these NFTs can come into these games and you can own a skin that you can play in other games, you hold it in your wallet, so you own it. You can sell it, right? You can't sell your own skins in Fortnite. I want to see that. I think that's a huge way to bridge that gap. Like you said, it is a younger audience for crypto, for games, and I think that that's the good parallel. The question is if video game companies are ready to, take that extra step to really evolve in that space.
Now, when it comes to esports, the biggest catalyst, if we are able to kind of have that, is going to be if esports are on those major cable TV networks, right? So I can give you an example. During COVID, when you had the major sports get canceled, you had the NBA 2K League that was on ESPN's networks. I believe they're on ESPN2, ESPN Plus, and different things like that. But I am getting word from our producers. You can go ahead and continue to talk to me. I can hear you. But that's kind of the biggest catalyst. But I do believe we have Clinton. So whenever you're ready, producer, you can go ahead and give us Clinton from XSET. Now, this man has a lot of interesting experience. I know, Chris, you have a lot of questions for him as well. So whenever we get a chance, we can get Clinton on. But Chris, I'll kind of leave it to you. Look forward to your panel there with Clinton, and it is all you.
Awesome. Thank you. Hey, Clinton, how's it going today?
What's up, Chris? Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you great. Thanks for joining us on this Benzinga Listmaker. So Clinton Sparks, the co-founder of XSET. So Clinton, for anyone out there not familiar with yourself or XSET, just give us a brief background here before we get into the questions.
Sure. So I am a Grammy-nominated multi-platinum producer, songwriter, DJ, sold over 75 million records, worked with everybody from Rick Ross, 2 Chainz, Ludacris, Pitbull, Akon, Lady Gaga, Beyonce, Eminem, Kanye. I signed and discovered DJ Snake. Built multiple multi-million-dollar brands over the years. And as it relates to gaming, it was at Faze Clan as VP of Business Development from the day we started it as a business, helped bring that to where it is today, and then left and started XSET, which is now the world's fastest growing and most diverse esports and gaming lifestyle brand.
Yeah, let's jump into that word diverse, right? I mean, I see that you have teams across so many different games. We've got Rainbow Six, Valorant, Rocket League, Fortnite, Call of Duty, Halo, iRacing games, Apex Legends. Tell me why it's important, right, to be involved in all kinds of different games in the esports space.
Well, I think it's important to be for multiple reasons, for the business side and for the human side. So the business side is because you want to be wherever you can excel, right? You want to evolve and elevate your business and be touching different people and have diversity within your portfolio of teams that you're going to have out there, which ups your odds of creating a championship team. On the human side, because we want to represent everything in that makes sense to all of the communities and to all the gamers and to the audience, that us as a brand, if we want to be relevant and we want everybody to be familiar with us, then our job is to be part of all those communities and have those different teams. And whatever we're doing at XSET, we always approach it with, why does this make sense, for the brand, financially, for the community, for the audience, and the unity within gaming overall. So we think about all these things as we take our steps forward in whatever we're going to do, which includes, deciding what teams we're going to build.
Awesome. So, this panel is talking about the future of esports, right? So I know it's hard to pick, between all those different games that you have teams you're involved with, but are there any in particular that you see maybe haven't caught on as much as they should have and are going to be, the next big league worldwide?
Well, it's funny you should say that, because I'm a few months away from a major cultural gaming disruptor announcement that we'll be doing with XSET. But as it relates to the esports teams in particular, Marco Moreau, one of the other founders at XSET, he heads up our esports division, so he would be way better suited to answer very specific esports questions. I'm not as involved in the esports teams as Marco is. I'm focused on the overall building of the brand, the culture within the brand, and the diversity and all of the business development that we do within the brand.
So we did have the COVID pandemic, right, that impacted so many sectors worldwide, and esports was one of them. Can you just touch a little on how the pandemic impacted esports negatively and maybe how there were some lessons learned to grow the business because of the pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, look, our whole business is in a digital space anyhow, right? So it's not like COVID affected us in a negative way. What it would affect as it relates to the business of esports is maybe those that are willing to invest in the space, because they're a little bit nervous about not enough models have been built out to show enough return on your investment or revenue streams within the esports sector of gaming. So I think one of the biggest negative parts is people losing faith in investing in the space because they don't see the return, because not enough, again, models or infrastructure hasn't been built to show like, look, here's where all the money comes from. Here's why you should invest in this. But overall, in esports and gaming, I think it's excelled over the pandemic, because another thing that it did, the positive side, is it made all of the worlds, from the brands to investors to audiences that were not familiar, didn't understand it, was like, I don't understand what you guys are doing over there that we've been all screaming for years, and made them now almost be forced. You grab them by the shoulder and be like, see, look, this is what's happening. And you can't look at anything else because you're stuck in your house and you're online. So there's no way you're not going to understand what's going on over here. So I think a lot more people started to realize and comprehend the fascinating world of gaming and esports.
Excellent. So, personal question for you, Clinton. What are some of your favorite games to play and some of your favorite games to watch? I know you're a busy guy, but when you take time to get involved, personally with games, are there any that you play, and which ones do you enjoy watching XSET teams play the most?
So the ones I like to play is when I jump on GTA on our T Grizzly, who's recently we signed T Grizzly to XSET. We signed him live inside GTA during the storyline. So we built an XSET building within his GTA server, and him and his boys, the Grizzly Gang, all pulled up to the building. It was all part of the storyline, and we were all in there waiting, and we all met, and then he officially joined XSET inside GTA, which is we made history with that announcement. No one's ever joined an organization inside a game. So GTA, I also like use my VR headset and play Top Golf. So that's what I like to play. But I love watching. It's funny because when we first launched XSET, and then it was like, hey, our Rocket League is playing. It was just really, it felt awesome being an owner of a sporting team, right? And I know a lot of people might not even want to call an esports team a sports team, right? But I do. And I think they are a sports team. And for those that disagree, we can debate this. But I really enjoyed watching it. And it was funny because I was watching with one of my other buddies who runs esports over at Faze. We were watching it together, and Faze and XSET were playing against each other. So we're on the phone talking shit, watching it together. So I really like watching Rocket League. It's pretty similar to soccer, which is also another exciting, real life sport. So Rocket League is my favorite one to watch us play.
Awesome. I'm going to jump to something you said, because that was going to be my last question, was going to be, what do you say to someone who calls esports a non-sport? And you went into it. So Clinton, I'm on your side. I think esports is a sport, but for those out there who don't think it is, what's your quick speech or explanation to prove them and tell them, hey, this is a sport?
Well, I think that I didn't realize I don't know if that's me being blurry or it's just on your side. Let me see if this makes it better. Am I
You
better?
look good on my
Yeah,
side.
still kind of the same. I would say they need to get familiar. And it's funny because you'll hear, especially adults, right? They'll say, who just sits there and watches games? It's like, same people that could sit there and watch golf. Same people that could sit there and watch other people play baseball. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't understand the concept of people saying this is different and it's not equivalent to a real life traditional sport that we've all been watching for years, that we're not playing, that we don't have the ability to play, and quite frankly, can be boring at times. You know what I mean? And like, gaming is action packed all the time, from the talking, the narrative, to what's happening on the screen. So, and by the way, the people that play in professional esports teams, I think most people don't understand how much time they have to put into that. They're on the court per se, practicing, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12 hours a day, putting in that, harnessing their skill to become better, to be quicker, to have better reactions, to understand the court, if you will, to be better against their opponents. So the same dedication, the same focus, the same time you put into it, and then the camaraderie of your team. And then you have a coach and you have a manager, and you're playing in real tournaments, and there's real brackets, and there's real prize money, and there's real. So you tell me what's different, because in your limited experience or your limited mind to understand ingenuity or innovation or the next generation, that's your problem. It's not our problem. It's your problem that you don't get it, and you're the one that's going to miss out on exciting times and opportunities and ways to even build businesses, because, esports and gaming is still really at a very young age. And the way my mind thinks is unlimited opportunities still within this space. And I've been a huge advocate of trying to make other communities that are not familiar or kind of resist gaming and esports to understand the opportunities that exist here. Look, you'll send your kid to Pop Warner football, and then he plays in high school and he's playing football or basketball for 15 years in hopes that maybe he makes it to the big leagues, right? But gaming, you don't have to dribble a ball for 15 years. You can pick up some sticks in a couple months, be a contender that the world knows your name, you're making money, you built a business, and then you can, branch off of that and build more businesses. So it's actually a quicker way to success in the sports world than a traditional person that would resist it can even understand or sees.
Yeah, love that explanation. Zunaid and I were just talking about how, universities and colleges are also adding esports teams and programs into, their curriculum and their sports that are offered. So that's another way to get
Right.
people into the space. I want to talk about content creation, right? So the world of esports is not just, streaming games, watching games. It also evolves into kind of that content, influencers. So how does a company like XSET grow the business by creating content out of the video games that are played, but also the professional sports players that you have?
Right. So what you do is, I don't know if I can give this all the special sauce for this recipe, but we live in a world where, as I came up, primarily my career was in the hip hop world. And it was always the athletes wanted to be rappers and the rappers wanted to be athletes. It was always like that, right? And it's happening even with the gaming space now. You got the athletes and the rappers that want to be like gamers, and the gamers that want to live the life that the rappers and the athletes live, right? So and that comes with everything. It comes with fashion. It comes with music. It comes with art. It comes with streaming platforms. It just comes with the lifestyle that we all live. Look, this is the first generation where dads, me, and my kid, we like the same stuff. We wear the same clothes. We listen to the same music. We watch the same stuff on Netflix and Hulu. We watch Twitch. We check out what's going on YouTube and TikTok. Like prior to the generation before me, the distance between like parents and kids with different worlds, right? So this now having this a less of a generation gap where they can relate and understand one another, we all care about the same stuff. So when you incorporate the things that everybody cares about, it's really, you're not creating a lifestyle. The lifestyle exists. All you're doing is kind of help bring the right people together to showcase it the best way and or to harness what already pretty much exists, but people don't know how to connect with one another. And throughout my career, I've always been the conduit and the bridge between, different communities. Like when I was a kid in high school at the cafeteria, I was the kid that would go sit, with the white kids and the Asian kids and the black kids, and the kids that listen to heavy metal, then the kids that play Dungeons and Dragons, and the kids that were downstairs, and we don't know what they ever do until you see them at lunch. So it's like I was the guy that sat and cared about everybody, right? My whole life. And what I realized when I was young is everybody's the same. They care about the same things. They all want to be heard. They all want to hug. They all want to be accepted and loved. And the only difference is what they're wearing or what music they might listen to or what game they want to play. And I would be the guy that would always be like, oh, you should meet my friend over here because they're doing the same thing. So I would literally make kids friends in my school. And so I've done that throughout my whole career, and I'm doing it with XSET, as we all are, is kind of bringing the people like, this guy knows this guy's awesome, but they don't know how to connect with each other, or they feel weirded out to hit them on a DM. They don't want to get look dumb, you know what I mean? Because they didn't get a response or whatever it is. So being the guy that can connect everybody and everything in a fluent way that makes sense. Right? A lot of people force things to happen because they feel like, oh, gaming's popular right now. There's a lot of audience there. We can make a lot of money. Let's do a gaming initiative. We don't believe you. You know what I'm saying? So like, if you're not believable, then we're not going to buy into it, and you're going to corner yourself out, and you don't get a second shot, because we're going to remember how whack you try to be part of this community in a whack way. So, it's really understanding the mentality and the psychology of everybody. Because I can understand what a gamer thinks like. I understand what an investor thinks like, what a brand thinks like, what a rapper thinks like, what an athlete thinks like, and what they want out of life, or their participation in something like an XSET. So bringing all these worlds together in a way that they understand that we understand them, it makes them more open to want to do things, which then allows us all to create stuff that other people could never create in an authentic way.
Love that. So Clinton Sparks, co-founder of XSET. We are out of time, but that was such a great explanation on that content creation. So appreciate that. We are now sending things over to Aaron Bry. Aaron, over to you.
Don't forget to follow at XSET.
What is up, everyone? Hope everyone's having a great day so far. Thank you for joining us on this edition of Listmakers. This one is near and dear to my heart as a gamer, and I'm excited for this next interview. So if you need to work on your golf swing, you go see a golf pro and they help you out, give you lessons. If your kid is failing calculus, you can send him or her to a tutor. But what do you do if you want to get better at gaming? A lot of people think gaming is one of those things that you're either good at or you're not. But there is a way to get better, and that's exactly what this next company is doing, Blitz. We are going to be joined by co-founder Adil Virani. Adil, welcome to the Listmakers.
How's it going?
Good. How are you today?
Doing well. I'm actually in New York, so for NFT NYC. So it's fun.
Awesome. How's that so far?
Really cool people, lots of innovation, lots of things to show off. So happy to see that.
So Adil, before we get started into Blitz, I gotta ask. So you're the co-founder of a gaming company, specifically a company that provides coaching for gamers. Are you yourself a gamer? How did this idea start?
Yeah, I myself am a gamer. Definitely not a pro. Not even close. But I mean, I dabble in a lot of different games because Blitz supports a lot of them. I think for me, like, I kind of just try to understand how it's created more than anything else, and then like, I guess the psychology of why people make certain decisions. But in terms of Blitz, how it came about, Dan Din, who's the co-founder of TSM, actually acquired the app from the team who previously owned Blitz Esports, which was a kind of a news ESPN-esque site for gaming. And from there, they just had like 20,000 daily active users, and Dan didn't really know anything about tech and how to build it up, and so it got pawned off to me, and then from there, I hey, in order for this to actually succeed, we actually need to hire a full-blown team.
Got it.
We grew it from the 20,000 daily active users to 3 million daily active users today.
So so walk us through what Blitz offers today, kind of the overview of the company. If someone visits the site for the first time, what can they find? What games do you guys support?
I think, like, for me, the way I think about it, Blitz sits at the center of like publishers, pros, and consumers. So we're pretty much the only application that effectively like empowers like top competitive teams and also everyday gamers in tandem. And currently, like, we're extremely focused on like redefining the infrastructure for gaming. And by doing that, we have like coaching, Blitz Arena, and a place for them to actually learn and compete. And the games that we support right now are League of Legends, TFT, Fortnite, Apex, Legends of Runeterra, and Valorant. We have like 4 other games coming out soon. I think we actually launched Apex like 4 days ago, and we have like 500,000 games a day. So that's crazy.
Awesome. Well, congrats. So why is this, what you guys are doing, so important for gamers kind of all levels, whether you're, just an amateur gamer that plays for fun and wanting to take the next level, or maybe you're a high school kid that wants to potentially get a gaming scholarship. There's all these different levels where different gamers are at. Why is it important, for the gaming industry as a whole?
Yeah. For all multiplayer games, right, there's pretty much an infinite outcome and decision matrices you have to go through all in real time for pretty much every game. Players only have like a few minutes before each match to actually understand what they're getting themselves into and what type of strategy will increase their odds of winning. And so Blitz is pretty much set up to help these gamers be in this right frame of mind before they actually enter the game. And we do this through like personalized and comprehensible like coaching categories in which users can easily navigate through the app and then look at what will provide the biggest delta of improvement for the gameplay. So by design, like that type of approach is horizontally scalable across all the games we support, because kind of like how you introed, right? Like there's no coach when you have a pickup game of basketball, or there's no coach there looking and tracking in a notepad when exactly and where exactly you took your shot. When did you release? At what time? Where did it hit the backboard? Did it hit the rim? Did it just swish? Like all these different things, right? You don't have anyone tracking all your specific actions at all times, but with gaming you do. And so, and because you're kind of blessed with all this surmounts of data, like you're able to actually use that to your advantage, and but no one knows how to comprehend it if it's not presented properly, and so that's where we step in.
Yeah, and I mean that's so interesting because you think about any industry right now, whether it's business, medicine, sports, you know, people are using that data to, you know, just using data in general to find more efficiencies, to create a better outcome, and it sounds like that's what you guys are trying to do in gaming, which is awesome because, like you said, anytime you play, say you play a 20-minute Apex game, there's probably thousands of data points you can look in there about, you know, when you did this, why you did that. So Dill, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like it's more so coaching players about like decision making, getting in the right you know, mental framework, like you said, as opposed to actual, you know, like the physical like reflexes of hitting this button versus that button, or having a quick enough you know, stick on the controller.
Mechanics to think about, really. Like when you think about how you improve mechanics, there's so many things that go into it, such as like sleep, like how much water you drink, like whether or not like you are expecting a behavior or expecting an action, were you ready for it? A lot of times when in Valorant, say someone peeks you, right? Like if you weren't even expecting it, how are you going to even react?
Right.
Versus people who are a lot better, who know what all the different outcomes are in their head already, so they don't really need to expect anything different. And so because they have that going into turning this corner, they already know what they're doing, and so their reaction time is faster, right? So I think there's a blend, and it's really easy to get mixed up mechanics from actual knowledge, and so right now we're focused on getting the players to get on the same page and understand the knowledge piece. But honestly, like in the future, I could totally imagine us like someone wearing an Apple Watch and just tracking their sleep. I think that's really important, and where their eyes are looking and stuff like that. Those are pretty cool concepts.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I think about it, you know, a lot of the best gamers out there, you know, it's not about the fact that they are the quickest with the mouse or the quickest with the buttons. They have just this insane anticipation, right? If they're playing a Battle Royale game, it seems like they know someone's going to be here before. And so yeah, it sounds like you guys are working on that, and I love that, because that's a way, like for me, I think about how do I want to get better? How do I want to win more Fortnite games or whatever? It's about increasing that awareness, increasing that anticipation, which, like you're saying, will lead to better mechanics, because then you're already expecting it. But Adil, I'm curious about kind of just in the general industry, as esports, both competitive gaming and kind of casual gaming grows, what kind of impact do you think this will have on the market opportunity for coaching in gaming?
Yeah, I mean, if you're asking me what the future holds for gaming, I actually have a crystal ball right here. But yeah, I mean, let's break that up. Let's start with gaming, right? I think right now we've seen a huge rise in mobile gaming, which is awesome. It's pretty inspiring. It's also a great opportunity because gaming is actually non-cannibalistic, right? So what that means is all these different platforms play very nicely with each other. You know, if I have to go on transit in New York, you know, I could pull out my phone and play like Wild Rift, or if I end up going back to my tablet, I can play TFT or all these things, right? I'm not really stuck to one game. So I think that's really cool. And it's making it more and more accessible for people around the world. And as accessibility increases, right, people tend to.
Can you hear me? Shut the TV off, please.
Uh-oh, give us 1 second. Looks like we're having some Adil will
apologize there.
Adil will be right back with us. Having some technical difficulties. But let's just do a quick rundown for the agenda for the rest of the day. So in a few minutes, I'll be bringing Steve Krause on. We'll be chatting for a few minutes, and he will be interviewing Felix Lahaye, the founder of United Esports. After that, Chris Kachi will hop on with Will Hershey, the co-founder of Roundhill Investments. So Roundhill is one of the investment companies kind of making different positions in the space. All right, looks like we got Adil back. Sorry about that, Adil.
Hey, I don't know where I cut off. I don't know what happened there.
Let's see. You were just talking about your crystal ball. No, just kidding. So we were talking about just gaming in general, how mobile, if people are playing mobile, it won't cannibalize necessarily console gaming, et cetera.
Yeah. I mean, as accessibility increases around the world, people start to think about it more as like not just gaming, but a career or something they can study in school or even adopt as a sport. And another big trend we're starting to see is that more women are entering the scene. And this is also a great sign because more and more diverse environments are, and then the more the industry gets pushed forward because there's a voice that can extend far beyond like one stereotype. So that's where I think like gaming is headed right now. And that's really nice to see. And then in terms of coaching, like specifically AI coaching, I think we're a couple of years out. No product in the market really right now displays any legit AI or machine learning in their products. These buzzwords are just like used to make the product seem more elite than it really is. So like I don't want any of our users or any of the users that use any other product to be fooled by that. But we plan to change that and show the world what it really means to apply those two at scale. And so that's
yeah, that's like what I was talking about earlier, where it doesn't matter the industry. Every single industry right now is figuring out, okay, how can we use the data available? How can we use machine learning? How can we use AI to then use this data to create more efficient outcomes? So to see that be done in gaming by you guys is incredible. And then, yeah, like you said, I mean, with just as the industry grows, it's going to create more of a need for coaching. Like if you think about golf, for example, like I brought up earlier, as golf grows and more people start golfing, it creates a need for more golf teachers. More people are going to be taking lessons. So Adil, we are running out of time here, but I just want to open the floor to you to any final kind of thoughts about the esports industry right now, or anything else you'd like to share about Blitz.
No, honestly, thanks for having me. Really appreciate that. And download Blitz if you haven't already. Yeah, thanks for your time.
Awesome. Well, Adil, enjoy the rest of your week in NFT or NYC NFT. Sounds like a great time. We've actually got a couple reporters there from Benzinga, so if you run into some guys wearing a Benzinga shirt, just say hi to them. Let them know you know me.
Will do.
All right, Adil, take care.
Take care.
All righty, y'all. That was Adil Virani, the co-founder of Blitz. What is up, Steve? How you doing today? Oh, looks like we got you on mute, Steve, or good now. You're good now.
We're good?
Yep, I'm getting the signal that you are good to go.
Excellent. Not too bad, Aaron. How are you?
I'm great. So what have you been playing recently, Steve?
Well, I'm anticipating the next Tarkov wipe, Thursday, tomorrow, maybe next week. We'll see. I've been playing the new season of Fortnite. It's really good. Apex is really good. Let's see. I've been playing Neon White. That's really good on the Switch. That one's really good. Some Card Shark as well. How about you? What have you been playing?
I've been back in a FIFA kick recently. I've been playing a lot of
Very
online
nice.
FIFA. It's
You've been
so
doing pack openings?
Yep, Ultimate Team. I actually packed a 96 like Team of the Season Virgil van Dijk the other day, so I was excited about
Very
that.
nice.
But I just love
Very
the
nice.
pure like competitiveness of it. Like it's me versus one other person online. If I score 3 goals in a row and the guy rage quits, it just gives me a certain satisfaction in my heart.
The 1v1, it has a special place in my heart as well. You know, there is something about just going up against one person and beating them. You know, Hearthstone. Yeah, I do that for Hearthstone, like chess. You know, you play chess. Yeah, that's really good. League 1v1.
Yeah. All right, Steve. So what do we have coming up? What's your next interview?
I'm going to be talking to Felix Lahaye of United Esports, CEO and founder.
Sounds awesome. Well, I'm excited for it. I'll let you take it away.
Hey, Felix, how's it going?
Hey, Chris, how are you?
Not too bad. So Felix Lahaye is the CEO and founder of Esports, of United Esports. I'm so sorry. United Esports. Walk through what your company does. You got 3 really interesting facets. I want to go through all 3 of them, but kind of give us a breakdown of what United Esports is and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So United Esports is a media and marketing and investment group based out of Los Angeles, focusing, as the name suggests, in esports. We have 3 facets. One of them is an esports marketing company. I think we're in a strong position of leadership in that market. What is esports marketing? Of course, it's just leveraging esports and gaming culture to help brands, organizations, games communicate with their audience. Then we are in ownership of the largest chain of esports bars in the world, which is Core Meltdown here in the Americas, and Kappa Meltdown in Europe, with over 30 bars over there, esports bars. And then we have an investment practice focusing on competitive esports and IP, with a strong focus on Asian esports. So a bunch of things with the magic words being esports, one B2B, one B2C, and one financial services.
Yeah, let's start with that first one, right? So one of your big partners is Procter & Gamble, and you got some really interesting marketing campaigns. I want to talk about Tsmftx because this is kind of a really important space for esports, right? Is inclusion. You know, obviously there's gaming has been a very male-dominated space for a really long time. Talk to us about your partnership with Tsmftx, what you did there, and kind of your goal.
Absolutely. So Tsmftx was one of the very first female-focused brand that leverage esports and gaming, and that started with our first campaign with them a few years ago at this point. And the goal, and the first one, and it's evolved, of course, I think now has been 5, 6. I mean, it's been going on for years. But the first one was simply just to introduce a female gaming audience to the product, and to actually informational point discuss. There's a lot of misconceptions around tampons, a lot of lack information on periods, and we just started using some of the great voices, the great women voices in gaming to propagate these messages. And interestingly, I mean, it's a story I love to tell, because for months leading up to the campaign, a lot of people were trying to say, please don't do this, it's going to be super toxic, you're going to get kicked out. And we were certain, so no, it's going to do great. And I'm very proud to say it was the highest performing campaign for the brand of the year, and has been almost every year since, focusing in women in gaming. And one of course of the important things to realize is the idea that, or the concept that it's truly a male-dominated industry is very, very, very generational. If you look at younger Gen Zs, the market penetration of gaming with young women is almost on par with men. So it's really more in my generations and above that it's more heavily weighed males. And truly, as it evolves, we're seeing a lot of it now. A lot of our partners, based off the success of the many Tampax campaigns we've done and the recognitions and awards that they received. Now many of our clients and partners are female-focused brands leveraging gaming and truly, well, killing it because it's a fantastic audience.
Yeah, I think our generation really did. That was kind of the narrative we knew growing up, right? It's all men, women don't really game. And as we've kind of, the industry has evolved and we get more data, that's just not true. There's, I feel like,
Correct.
Women game all the time, and it's just a complete myth that it's male dominated. So it's really great to see some action in this space. So what else have you guys done with Procter and Gamble? What other campaigns have you guys done?
We've done quite a few. I think we've done 8 or 9 brands at this point. I mean, the whole mantra is always to create something fun, right? I mean, when you're talking about P&G brands or you're talking about any any brands entering esports and gaming, you need to add value to the audience. So you're not going to
Absolutely.
be seeing things from us that are a logo slap, right? Just putting something in the corner and say, this is what it is. I would have been doing this either way, but now I have a sticker on my shirt from blah, blah.
Sure.
I mean, so.
Yeah, it's not the NASCAR thing where you just put the logo on, right?
Right, exactly. So, yeah, I mean, I'm sure, so what we've always done, especially for these brands, I don't really believe in the concept of endemic and non-endemic brands. I think that given the dominance of gaming, I mean, as we all know, gaming is by far the largest form of entertainment in the world at this point. 100% of brands are going to be involved. And so there's just brands that are currently endemic and brands that are soon to be endemic. And most of our partners that are not gaming companies made their very first steps in gaming with United Esports, and I'm very proud to say that the overwhelming majority of these brands are still involved in esports. I guess. I mean, I was trying to find another word, but or in gaming or in our culture and whatever it is, and that's because we're able to. I mean, we're just able to do something fun, right? The audience doesn't kick them out because they don't come in sounding all fake and outsiders. We create, I mean, one of the ones I really like, I mean, a couple years ago now, but one of the, you asked about PNG. I'm not going to go over all of them. I mean, I'm proud of all the campaigns, but this is a big classic, was the Tide Laundry Trials, whereby we organized all these esports competitions between celebrities, the stakes being who's going to have to do the laundry. So you were seeing like NFL stars playing against Fortnite pros, so it's kind of things like that. The whole mantra is people, especially in esports and gaming, younger people are incredibly smart. They know they're being advertised to. This is not, when I started my career, some people were like, oh, let's do advertise. And that's before esports marketing was a thing. Let's try and do messages. People won't know it's sponsored. I mean, that probably lasted what, like 3 weeks? You could fool people into believing it was not sponsored.
I think one of the gaming is the one audience that you really can't fool, right? we know our product, we know what we like, and the fails are pretty big here, right? Like I can think of, I think State Farm, advertising in was it NBA 2K, right? And having the little State Farm store, and you go visit Jake from State Farm in the game, and it's like, it certainly created some viral moments, but it's hard to bullshit gamers.
I mean, I'm not gonna comment on who failed and who didn't fail, etc. Sure. I still have friends. I want to keep the friends the few friends that I have, but I agree with your point completely. The point is, I mean, you're not gonna fool the gaming audience, so do something fun. No. And if they're having fun with the product, I mean, the people, I mean, you always have a few detractors that are just, you're not convinced anyways, but people understand that streamers, esports events, platforms need to make money, and they make money through advertisers. So they tend to appreciate, they tend to appreciate it when the advertising message is fun or interesting or entertaining and just doesn't take them for fools. So it's going to happen either way. It's just better when it happens well.
That's very true. Do you have anything exciting coming down the line that you can mention or tease for us? in terms
I mean,
of
we're
campaigns?
doing a lot. I mean, in terms the unfortunate thing with marketing is that the announcement of the marketing is part of the market.
That's
So
true. Yeah.
I'm in it's funny. I mean, we have some great partners. We're working on three new game releases that are going to be big titles
Okay.
that we're excited to announce. Of course, these are triple NDA'd, but they're
Yeah, of
quite
course. Yeah.
exciting. We continue to do a lot on bringing these brands to the ecosystem to
Mhm.
to grow. I'm very happy about our partnership with Wisdom out of Minnesota, Wisdom Gaming and United Esports, and now partnered together for a bunch of great events and media and category, leveraging their facilities and merging some of our creative teams. So that's really on the pure media side of our organization. But I don't know. I think the summer is gonna be fun, and it's always cool to see the industry grow. Honestly, I mean, when
That's
we
really exciting.
started this,
I'm looking forward to that. Yeah.
yeah,
I wanted to talk a little bit before we go about Meltdown, and we have a little bit of time left here. But Meltdown is I'm
sure.
really excited about this. So you have 30 bars total, and you're coming over to North America, right?
Yeah, so Meltdown it's 10 years old now. It
That's
was
awesome.
started in France, and we just recently merged with Kappa bars, Kappa Esports
Okay.
bars. So now in Europe we're Kappa Meltdown or Meltdown Kappa. We basically we already were the largest chain, the two largest chains of esports bars, and now we're one company. So that's great. At least it's great for us. And
Definitely.
thank you. And in North America, we have launched 2 months ago in the US. We already have one bar in Montreal, my hometown.
Okay.
Um,
Nice.
but we've launched in the US through our partnership with Hard Rock Cafe. So now we are providing esports experience and events at 4 Hard Rocks: Hollywood, Seattle, Chicago, Atlanta. Each month has a theme. This month is Game with Pride. It's really awesome. Actually, the
Awesome.
next one is on Sunday. I would recommend going on Sunday if you're in one of those 4 cities. And next month we are also adding. So it's always on Sundays. We're adding 3 additional cities, which are Denver, Nashville, Miami. So progressively
Awesome.
expanding
So
across
expanding,
all
yeah.
the yeah. So
Yeah,
if you like
this is a
having a
space
drink and
that's
you like gaming, come down.
definitely, yeah. I mean, this is a space that back when League was first doing their Worlds, I went to a bar that was hosting it. They didn't do it the next year. I was kind of disappointed, and so I think it's a experience that people are kind of really hankering for, especially as things are opening up. Did COVID affect Meltdown? I imagine it affected you guys fairly decently.
Yeah, a lot. It was
Yeah.
that was the part of our business of that was most affected. The digital media and
Mhm.
marketing and the financial side was positively affected on some element because many things
Sure.
moved to digital, but the physical bar side was and it depended,
Yeah.
on the geo. We're in quite a few countries, so but yeah, it was not a great time for esports bars for a year and a half or two.
Sure. Yeah. Well, now that things are opening up, especially in America, looking forward to that. I'll probably check out the Chicago branch. I'm excited
Yeah,
for that.
nice. You should come
Felix,
down. Come on Sunday.
definitely. I will try to. Yeah. Felix,
Thank you.
CEO and founder of United Esports. Thanks for talking. Next time we'll do a League 1v1 or something like that. You can
Yeah, Steve, I
direct me or
appreciate it,
something.
man.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
You too.
Cheers.
Hello.
Hey, Steve.
Hey, Chris. How's it going?
It's going. Hey, I just enjoyed that interview you did, United Esports. That was a fun one.
Yeah, Felix is great. I mean, it seems like they're doing really cool marketing stuff. Looking forward to some of those game releases he was talking about. And Meltdown seems awesome. Yeah, this is something I've been, like I mentioned, wanting to do for a long time. So I'll definitely be checking that out.
Yeah, definitely. So Benzinga Listmakers today, esports. I know this was kind of your baby, right? An area that you're
Yeah.
passionate about, esports and video games. So have you been pleased overall so far with the coverage?
Yeah, you guys have been doing really, really great. Some really great interviews. I'm wasn't able to watch the full thing. I gotta rewatch some of it, but I really have been enjoying it. Esports is a really great emerging space. So much potential here, and so much that people just don't understand. It's a really difficult space to get into. I know um, it's one of those things like crypto or the metaverse, right? It's like nebulous. Felix was even saying himself, he's like, he said esports so many times. And he's like, I wish I could say another word. There's not really another word, but it's like one of those things. It's like esports, it's so nebulous for people. But yeah, it's a really, really big space, a lot of opportunities.
Definitely. All right. Well, I am going to be conducting an interview now with Mario Stefanidis from Roundhill Investments to talk about a esports and video game ETF. So, Steve, we will catch you later, but really enjoyed the coverage there.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Mario, how are we doing today?
Hey, Chris. How's it going?
It's going great. So Mario Stefanidis, the Vice President of Research at Roundhill Investments. If you're not familiar with Roundhill Investments, they are an ETF company with many sector-specific ETFs. So, I mean, sports betting, the metaverse, cannabis, meme stocks, and also the focus of today's list maker. They have the Roundhill Esports and Digital Entertainment ETF. Ticker is NERD. For those of you who can spell, that is, of course, a nerd. Mario, let's start with esports. So what is it that's so exciting about the world of esports and what's to come?
So, esports is one of the fastest growing segments of the video game sector. And part of that is due to a growing demographic, whether it's, women entering the esports arena for the first time, or esports streaming growing in emerging markets like China and the Philippines and Southeast Asia. You just have all of these cross currents coming together, combined with growing prize pools, more sophisticated tournaments, and more abilities to participate in these tournaments. COVID really accelerated a lot of this progress, brought forward a few years of growth in allowing people to participate in these tournaments online for the first time, making it really scalable to join your esport of choice. So it's kind of all of those things coming together at the perfect time. Plus, bandwidth speeds are faster than ever. People are gaming with really low latency, and graphics cards can facilitate the highest fidelity performance.
Love that. Yeah, you mentioned a couple catalysts that really have helped the industry. So we've seen large video game companies like Activision Blizzard and Take-Two, use their existing intellectual property and create these esports leagues. So we have, an Overwatch league, a Call of Duty league. We've got the NBA 2K league. Why is that so important for these companies, and how can it be, a catalyst to bring additional revenue to their publicly traded companies?
So currently, companies, these large video game publishers and holding companies, they're not making too much money off of the esports side themselves, other than Valve. The international is, every iteration is making over $150 million for Valve, at least. That's just the compendium sales. But when you think about Call of Duty League or Overwatch League, these leagues aren't making Activision really a ton of money. But what they are doing is they're bringing eyeballs into the game, and they're bringing new people who might not have been gamers previously into the fray. For example, there's people that only watch esports on services like Twitch and YouTube Gaming. they would have never picked up a controller, either not due to not having the skills or not having the time. But it's really easy to just jump in and watch your esport of choice and root for a team. And while the sponsorships are currently coming in, and these esports organizations are inking these licensing deals and these naming rights deals, it's currently not a huge portion of their revenue.
Awesome. So in the video game space, M&A has been top of mind, right? Mergers and acquisitions. So you told me that there's been, 12 of the billion-dollar acquisitions in the space have been announced over the last 2 years. Let's start with the big one, right? Microsoft announced that they're buying Activision Blizzard. What do you think the key thesis is there for Microsoft to acquire this large gaming company?
So it's a huge transaction, and it's Microsoft's second landmark video game transaction in just 2 years. Last year, they acquired ZeniMax, which is the studio behind The Elder Scrolls, soon to be Stargate. Really big titles. And part of that was to see if they can integrate all of those assets into their Xbox gaming division, which they have successfully. They elevated Phil Spencer to a new role, head of gaming, and he's going to be overseeing all of these studios and uniting them all. And this Activision Blizzard deal is enormous because Activision was one of 3 publicly traded video game holding companies in the United States, and taking them off the market for $68.7 billion is really a huge deal. It's not only the biggest video game acquisition of all time. It's also one of the biggest M&A deals, in the last 10 years in general. Part of the hurdle there is going to be FTC approval. So the Federal Trade Commission has said they want to make sure that the acquisition is not monopolistic. Microsoft isn't going to make too many of these games exclusive. So I would say that regulatory risk is probably the biggest hurdle they need to face. But once they get through that, it's smooth sailing, and they just exponentially grew one of their fastest growing segments.
So let's go back to that exclusive, right? So we have this ongoing battle between Microsoft with the Xbox and Sony with the PlayStation, right? And both of those companies have been active in acquiring gaming companies and also trying to grow their exclusive portfolio. How does Microsoft manage that here with the risk of regulation? Do you think we see Call of Duty become exclusive to Xbox consoles in the future? Or is that just, kind of out of the question because of that risk?
They've said they'll maintain existing licensing deals for the years to come. Who knows how long that time frame is. I think if they're able to integrate Call of Duty with Xbox Game Pass, which is their monthly subscription service, it'll be a huge opportunity for them. They're trying to turn Game Pass into what Netflix is for video streaming and what Spotify is for audio streaming. This third major media category. And gaming is, of course, as the last guest mentioned, the biggest category of media globally. So Game Pass really has potential, and the more assets they can load it with, the more appealing it will be, and the more palatable that monthly subscription price will be to a variety of consumers. Like you said, though, the regulatory risk is present. There's never been quite a deal like this. Most video game acquisitions are, well below $1 billion, like the types of companies, holding companies like Embracer and EG7 are acquiring, or even the small studios that Netflix is acquiring for their gaming push. We've never quite seen a deal like this. So, your guess is as good as mine as to whether this is going to be approved. The market is certainly not positive that the deal will go through. If you look at shares of Activision Blizzard, I believe they're currently around $80. Well, the deal price is for $95 a share. So the market is not certain that this deal will go through. On Sony's end, they acquired Bungie for $3.6 billion earlier this year, partially as a reaction to Microsoft's acquisitions. In fact, you saw that when Microsoft acquired Activision, Sony share prices fell, high single-digit percent, as people feared that many of these games would be taken exclusive and Sony might not be able to compete on gaming anymore. So 3.6 billion is pretty small in the grand scheme of things, but Bungie is a great developer. Their only current title is Destiny 2, but that game has millions of players. They update it as a games as a service model. But again, that deal is also going to be going through FTC approval, which kind of shocked me. You typically don't see deals of that size, and especially a publisher that literally only has one game, be subject to scrutiny. But even then, the FTC wants to make sure that Destiny won't be made exclusive for PlayStation, and it'll continue to be available on Xbox and PC.
Definitely. Now, one M&A activity we're also seeing is we had Saudi Arabia buying up esports assets. So bringing it back to esports, why is this important, and why maybe were they acquiring these assets in the esports space? Is it the international growth of the sector?
Yeah, so esports through 2025, market research firm Newzoo projects will have a 13% CAGR, which is pretty quick, especially given that the global games market will probably have about a 5 or a 6% CAGR over that period. Saudi Arabia has their hand in most publicly traded video game companies, actually. I have the numbers right here, but they own 5% of all of Activision, 5% of EA, 10% of Take-Two, 5% of Nintendo, 5% of Capcom, and 5% of Nexon. Those last two are Japanese game developers. So they own substantial minority stakes in most gaming companies already. And esports is kind of the second derivative of that. So they purchased ESL from Modern Times Group. Modern Times Group is a Swedish tournament organizer and video game company. ESL was their crown jewel in the majority of their assets. They sold that for $1 billion to the Saudi Arabia Public Investment Fund. And then another esports company, Face It, which is in the same business, was bought by the fund for $500 million. And those two entities will be combined to form this super esports company. So that's a huge endorsement for the sector, I think. You have a $620 billion fund with their hand in not only video games, but also esports, which is a pretty niche part of the market.
Definitely. Now, one of the big storylines we saw in the gaming space in 2021 was the announcement or the confirmation that streaming giant Netflix is looking to grow fast in the gaming space. And they've acquired several smaller companies in the gaming space. So do you think that that's just a sign of what's to come, and maybe they go after a bigger fish here with an acquisition, or do they go like a partnership route to get some of those bigger titles available to their subscribers?
So they've made 3 studio acquisitions since Reed Hastings announced their plans to go into video games, initially starting with mobile and casual games. But all of those studio acquisitions have been for around $200 million or less. So pretty small. There aren't a ton of huge gaming companies they can go after, A, due to their balance sheet, but also B, due to the limited pool of those types of companies that are out there, especially given all of the M&A. A lot of this stuff has already been scooped up by larger technology players and even other FANG companies. I do think their most likely outcome, though, is to buy one of these few remaining companies, and one of those is Ubisoft. So Ubisoft is, a French game developer with an enormous back catalog of top quality titles like Assassin's Creed and Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell, among other games, many other games. If they were to go this route, they would instantly be able to populate their site with hundreds of AAA titles. But again, it's going to cost them. And we've seen companies pull back on their M&A spending in the last 3 or 4 months, given the tough macroeconomic environment.
So what about on the streaming side of things? So we're seeing more of these streaming companies, your Apple, your Amazon Prime, your Netflix, kind of compete for sports rights. Do you think we see
Mhm.
that transition to esports? Could Netflix try to make a run to grow their gaming division by grabbing some of these international esports rights, or maybe a docu-series about esports like what they did with Formula One? Could that be in the cards?
So it's interesting because Netflix actually did a animated series about Dota 2. So they, bought those rights from Valve, which was pretty huge at the time. And yeah, I think it lends itself to that type of appetite. Esports is certainly growing. League of Legends Worlds uh, continues to break records. Uh, Last year's iteration, you know, again broke another record. The international, both in terms of its huge prize pool, which is over $40 million, um, as well as its viewership, also breaks records. So I do think that's in the cards, especially with Apple's latest deal purchasing the rights to Major League Soccer. They're in talks to purchase possibly some NFL games. Um, I do think that's could be a natural complement for Apple TV.
Awesome. So we're about halfway through the year, and we don't have the list of the top selling video games for the first 6 months yet, but we do have the first 5 months. And Elden Ring is the top selling video game for the first 5 months. Now, one of the things I know about that video game is that Elon Musk, right, the Tesla CEO, is a big fan. He plays the game, he tweets about it. So I guess two questions, Mario. Are you surprised that Elden Ring is number one? And do you think Elon Musk helped at all in it topping the list?
So in a normal year, I would be surprised for a game like that to be number one. That developer from Software, they're behind the Dark Souls series of games, and Bloodborne and Demon Souls, and those games have always been more niche than anything, more appealing towards hardcore gamers, especially due to their exceeding difficulty. But Elden Ring is just such a masterfully crafted game. Its open world environment gives people hundreds of hours of play. Personally, I'm only 30 hours into the game, and I'm not even, a fifth of the way done. Um, so no, I'm not surprised. It's a masterfully crafted game. Will certainly win Game of the Year, especially given the drought of new games this year. So that's a reason why I would be surprised in a normal year. Normally you would have a major AAA title taking the crown, but due to due to the disruptions from COVID still lingering, developers have postponed a lot of games till 2023 and beyond. And there's just nothing that's gonna, usurp Elden Ring at this point.
Awesome. So I want to talk a little bit about the metaverse and NFTs. So that's kind of a sector that's growing, and video game companies have been a little hesitant to get into NFTs, but they're kind of attacking the metaverse, right? Which we all kind of know that video games have already kind of been there ahead of the time. Where do you see metaverse and NFTs playing into video games, now and 5 years out?
Yeah, so Ubisoft ventured into NFTs earlier this year with their Ghost Recon series, and that faced really huge backlash. They were planning on creating an NFT store where people could buy and sell these tokens, give them access to cosmetics in the game, and gamers, simply revolted. Another example is the Stalker 2, another game from a Polish gaming developer, a long-awaited sequel to the original Stalker, which is kind of this cult classic. They announced that they were going to incorporate NFTs into the game too, and luckily YouTube got rid of dislikes because that trailer was really hated. So gamers aren't as optimistic on NFTs as these publishers are. And I think some of that is just due to cautiousness. Microtransactions are already somewhat of a gray area. They've been incorporated though in almost all premium AAA titles at this point, and people have come around to them. But NFTs are kind of this one layer of abstraction above that, and yeah, people are just skeptical. It's a new technology. They haven't seen whether it can be pulled off successfully in a title that's already costing you $60 or $70 at a premium price point. So yeah, it's yet to be seen, but I think once we get the first AAA title that incorporates them, if the reception is good, you'll see more games at it. But if not, it may be some more years down the line until NFTs become mainstream for gamers. For other purposes, they're already mainstream, like for artwork, and even for digital real estate in platforms like Decentraland. The use case for NFTs there has been shown, but for gaming, we're still not there yet.
Awesome. Love that insight. Yeah, I'm looking forward to, seeing what we get for NFTs. And like you said, a lot of the gaming companies have to balance, right? Making that revenue and growing in the space and also not pissing off their fans. So where's the fine line? I guess we will find out. Mario Stefanidis, the Vice President of Research at Roundhill Investments, the Roundhill Esports and Digital Entertainment ETF, ticker NERD. Mario, thank you so much for joining us on Benzinga Listmakers Esports Edition.
Yeah, thanks so much, Chris.
Zunaid, what's going on?
That was solid insight, man. Especially potential acquisitions that you guys talked about in different areas, covering that as well. That was an awesome insight, man.
Yeah, I mean, I got some great insight from Mario before that interview. There has been 17 acquisitions in the video game space that have been $1 billion or more, Zunaid.
Wow.
15 of them, 12 of them have been in the last 2 years. So, I mean, the majority. So the M&A activity is just insane in video games right now.
Hey, we keep talking about the future is esports, and that's what we've seen. Appreciate you, Chris. I'm going to go ahead and bring on my next guest, which is going to be Brian Goodman, CEO of Golden Matrix Group. It should be a fun interview as we talk about the future of gaming, especially when it comes to different types of games that they have. But I won't spoil anything. We'll have that conversation with Brian. So, Chris, appreciate you, man, and I'll see you on the other side. Brian, how are you? You hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Awesome. Hey, it's a pleasure to have you again. Brian Goodman, CEO of Golden Matrix Group. Pleasure to have you here. What's been going on lately in your neck of the woods in terms of gaming, especially? You kind of have a different type of gaming, right? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, let's talk about gambling, not gaming, I guess, is where we're at.
Hey, I'll call it that if you want. I wanted to trend the line properly, but cool. Let's talk about the gambling aspect of what Golden Matrix Group does.
The gambling aspect, let's talk about that. So, I guess esports has some difficulties in gambling in that there's some challenges because of... well, let's talk about it. So I guess there are a lot of people out there that talk about gambling on esports, but when you think about it logically, it would be very difficult for you to take bets on two potential teenagers in a basement of somebody's house playing a game against each other. So the difficulty is collusion, fraud. There are a whole load of issues that start coming to the surface, and it makes it pretty much impossible for any gambling operator to allow bets on regular people playing games. And so you see a lot of that, people talking about it, but at the end of the day, it's not something you can really achieve. I guess the only potential way to run gambling on esports would be maybe sanctioned events where it becomes a situation where the people that are playing each other would not want to throw a game or do something because of their status, and that applies to any type of even sports betting, where for sports betting operations, there's always a danger when there's a two-person tournament You could look at tennis, for instance, where there could be, who knows? I mean, but when you're looking at Wimbledon and these kind of things, you wouldn't really find somebody throwing a match because they have some money on the line, and so you get some comfort on that level. But so esports, us as a company, we put together a peer-to-peer esports situation where people would be able to play each other and bet against each other. So obviously they wouldn't be throwing their own match and and handing over some money, because that wouldn't really work. So in that environment, it works, because then you have two people competing, and then there's a monetary aspect to it because it's gambling as opposed to gaming. And that's what we have, and we built this product, and it has some soft games in it as well, and that'll launch quite soon. But our underlying business, obviously GMGI, we started off on the pink sheets, and this company started off at somewhere around 4 or 6 cents a share, and you know, we've delivered huge value to the shareholders, and we built this company over time. We have two aspects to the business. We have a B2B segment, and we also have a B2C. Our B2B segment is, you know, we have about 500 unique casino operations on our platform, and we have over 7 million players. So it's a considerable business, and I guess it goes to the fact that another difficulty, which you know, I don't want to mention, you know, negative things, but at the end of the day, any casino it comes down to real basics. It depends on how much you're buying the player for and how much you're extracting from the player. And in America today, the problem is everybody's fishing in the same pond, and the cost of players is huge. So you're talking maybe $700 to acquire a player, because everybody's competing for that same player. And then you'd be lucky, you know, maybe you can only get $200 from that player. So the more you scale your business and the more players you acquire, the worse you become. And the alternative, when you get to those kind of levels, is to reduce your acquisition. And reducing the acquisition means that your revenues come down. So therefore, you're sort of stuck between a rock and a hard place, and you ultimately, the only other way is to reduce your acquisition costs, which isn't that easy. Some of the brands, the large land-based brands that have recognition, they have different ways to recruit players, so they don't have to go out and actually acquire them in the open market. They can acquire them through brand, you know, cross-selling in their land-based organizations and whatever. But the other way is to extract more money from them. And the only way to do that is to keep them loyal, and to you know, use what we call loyalty programs, and these are what we do. And part of most of our B2B business is providing solid loyalty platforms, so that once you have that player, you daren't lose him, because you've paid a lot of money for him, and so you keep him loyal by following his behavior. And it may sound a bit ugly, but what happens generally is it's a sort of artificial intelligence, the system. It'll learn what kind of games he likes to play, and then offer up those games. It will also learn his skill levels. So what's really quite interesting is that it may find that he's a very skilled blackjack player or craps player, and then what it would do is, when it gives away free money, the loyalty system, it may stay away from those games. So it may offer him free money in slots, for instance, and try and you know, entice the player to play in slots, or maybe a jackpot, or whatever it may be. And so these systems are, you know, are extremely important. And if you don't have a very powerful loyalty system, then you know, you're churning players. They're coming in, they're taking free money, free opportunities, and then they're going to the next person and taking those same items, and the players are constantly churning, which creates a massive cost to the underlying operations.
I mean, $700 for acquisition cost of a player definitely sounds like a hefty one, especially if you're, I mean, I don't know what your average deposit is of a player. If you'd like to speak to that, I'd love to get some insight. You mentioned $200. Is that close to the average deposit that a player makes? If not, are you able to disclose that amount?
Well, we don't really operate casinos, online
You have a
casinos
B2B
ourselves.
platform.
We're a B2B platform,
Right.
but we do have an online B2C business, which is more of a raffle ticket business. And in that business, we put up motor vehicles, homes, anything of high value. In fact, we also have technology bundles that we put up, and it's a very successful business in the UK and Ireland that we acquired. And our acquisition cost in that business is somewhere around £4. It's and on the first purchase, generally we're getting our money back on those players. But then what happens is then our loyalty systems come into play, and we we keep these players loyal. We communicate with them. We see what they like, what type of motor vehicles they may like, and then we put those vehicles up, and then we sell raffle tickets. But going back to your question, it depends on the, if you're talking America, I would assume it may be an average deposit of somewhere around $50. And if the casino is using an affiliate, somebody who's delivering the traffic, it could be, there are three different ways. It may be on a straight sign up CPA, cost per acquisition. So it may just be on the guy signing up. It may be on the person signing up and making a minimum deposit. So the affiliate, when he gets paid, and so you would find something like, I would pay you $200 to acquire that player if he only deposits $50. I mean, that could be the
Yeah.
formula, and then you're behind the eight ball already, and you have to then ensure that that player stays around and spends more money. And
Yeah.
the interesting thing is a lot of these casinos, when you see free money, the money is the interesting part about that free money. It's in a lot of casinos, it's a contract for that player to play a certain amount, to wager a certain amount before he can draw out the money. And those things are quite important as well, because the casino is a statistical game, and when you break it down into numbers, it's very interesting, because the games, let's assume they would return in a online casino about 3% across the board. If you get that person to turn over his money 33 times, for instance, then what would happen is the casino would have their money back statistically. Some people may win, some may lose,
Yeah.
but all in all, those contracts would sort of be, if I give you $100 free and you deposit 100, then that 200 needs to be bet 30 times. Otherwise, you can't draw the money. And so
Yeah. It's a
statistically, the
rollover.
casino, statistically, the casinos protected themselves.
Yeah, and of course, what's great with that model, as from the business standpoint, is the fact that the house has an edge, right? And of course, with you needing to go ahead and risk a certain amount, the edge is then played out in the favor of house, which of course is a business model side of things, and that works in the house's favor, which is great. Now, taking a look at your stock price, but also to me, common sense says during COVID, you had a lot of businesses struggle. The mom and pops, unfortunately, the brick and mortars, unfortunately. However, digital companies such as yours, you got more people at home. They need something to do. Sports aren't exactly happening, so they can't gamble on that. They can play on your soft games. They can go ahead and risk and gamble on something else. Your stock price, you mentioned it, when you guys started off, looks like in 2017 it was 8 cents, but COVID low at about 35 cents, and you guys went to a high of approximately almost $15. Looks like 13.45 near there was your high. That was a lot of success for you. What momentum are you looking to carry from that success, looking forward into the rest of 2022, the second half?
Yes, so the company has had 15 straight quarters of profitability. It's a very conservatively run company, and it is all, it delivers not only EBITDA, it delivers bottom line profit, positive cash. Its revenues continuously grow, and we're rolling out new operators, every week. But what we've told the market already is that the core business will continue to grow, but we will also acquire some accretive, profitable businesses. So in a similar line to what we do, we'll hopefully make some acquisitions in the coming months, and that will also help to grow, to scale the business, because I think scale is quite important as well.
Absolutely.
And yeah, so we've always returned value to the shareholders, and we continue to grow every quarter. And I just think we sort of judged by the fact that we don't burn money, other people's money.
Yeah,
we,
I
we
mean,
generate money, which is unusual in the gambling market. But it's if you look at all the stock out there, and so we've got a very strong balance sheet as well. We have no debt on our books, and we have a lot of money. So in that way, we're quite different, and we're a solid investment for people who want to get in and ride along with something that's growing and will scale.
as a company that's involved with gambling, not having any debt, that's that's what you want. You know what I mean? That looks good. You mentioned earlier in this interview, this will be the final question. You've got so many competitors. You mentioned it yourself. Your cost is around $700 to get a client. What is it about GMGI? What is it about Golden Matrix Groups that you feel like gives you an edge over the extensive portfolio that you have in terms of gaming that you feel can kind of put you on the up and up to carry that momentum upwards and be one of the best companies in this space?
So yeah, as I mentioned on our B2C business, we have a very low acquisition rate. We have a return on our first purchase, which is unheard of, and so in that way we can scale. So I mean, if we were to go out and spend $1 million on acquiring players, then hopefully in the first purchase we get our money back, and then anything after that is profit. So we're able to scale exponentially, and so that's something that's really powerful. On the B2B side, as I mentioned, our loyalty system is something we believe is a market leader and something everybody has to have. And when you talked about COVID, the situation in times like that, people are stuck at home and they're playing games. But it's more than that. It's like any retailer right now. Land-based operators need to be online. There's no question about it. Any retail business that doesn't have an online presence, major retail business, is a dinosaur. And I think what's happened in the gambling or gaming industry is that maybe COVID made them wake up and think, hallelujah, I need to be online, and my casinos are closed down now, and I've got no form of income. But that transition is happening, and you'll not find any major casinos that don't have some form of strategy to have an online presence. And we provide the underlying technology, and we think that we believe strongly that our technology is superior.
Well, hey, that's some solid insight. Again, the ticker is GMGI. Brian Goodman, CEO of Golden Matrix Group. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Appreciate all the support, all the love, and wish the best of love to you. And I agree with you. I think when you have esports and gambling, I've already said it many times, I think it's a perfect marriage, and I look forward to seeing the success that your company has with that marriage. So I appreciate it. Thank you again for your time, sir.
Thank you. We'll talk soon.
Take care. Again, that was Brian Goodman, CEO of Golden Matrix Group. Well, that about wraps it up for our Listmaker series, especially as we focused on esports today. We went through a lot of things. We talked about teams such as Faze Clan, XSET, and we also talked about companies as well, your well-known brands such as Take-Two Interactive, EA Sports, Microsoft, Sony. And then we also talked a little bit about the betting side of things as well. We looked at other ETFs that you could possibly take a look at. One of them being Roundhill, one of them being Van Eck ETFs as well. We'll try to go and put out a list. Matter of fact, I believe it's already public. You guys can check that one out. Someone will throw it in the chat right now so you guys can check it out. And again, I personally, my 2 cents, I believe esports is the future, and I believe there are a lot of different companies that you can possibly get invested in, whether you want to go the hardware route, the software route, the API route, the broadcast route, or the gambling route, or anything else. But of course, as always, make sure you do your own due diligence. Check out the companies that we've covered here that we believe are making some noise in this space and will also continue to make some noise in this space as well. And then do your own due diligence. You work hard for your money, see where you can possibly invest your money to have it grow for you and have you get that financial independence. But that does it for me on behalf of myself and all of us here at Benzinga. Thank you for tuning in today, and we'll see you next time. See ya.